Warrior Lore. Chapter 3920. Wang. Space energy fell on the word assessment and quickly filled the 2 slots. You wish to join our Mingyi Sacred College? Soon, a figure appeared in front of Wang Xian. It was a middle-aged man with a sharp sword in his hand. He was sizing Wang Xian up. Yes, I'm here to study in Mingyi Sacred College. Wang Xian cupped his hands at him. Mingyi Sacred College was a college that would offend elite disciples from anywhere. However, if he wished to join an advanced college, he would have to join Mingyi Sacred College. Become a core member of Mingyi Sacred College. This wasn't something Wang Xian needed to consider. He needed to improve his strength first before considering his next move. At the very least, he needed to determine the direction of his cultivation. Use the power of space to form your strongest attack. Let me see what you're capable of. The middle-aged man sized Wang Xian up and said, under normal circumstances, our Mingyi Sacred College will lower our requirements for cultivators of the space attribute. We welcome cultivators of the space attribute to come to our Mingyi Sacred College as long as they are not too weak. Yes, Wang Xian nodded his head. Without any concealment, he unleashed all his space energy and condensed it into a space sword. Level 4 Eternal Realm? Not bad, not bad. How's your swordsmanship? The middle-aged man's eyes lit up as he asked. Swordsmanship? My swordsmanship is average. Wang Xian answered. Space attribute cultivators take the path of a swordsman, which is much wider than the path of a sorcerer. There are also more dermic access. Your swordsmanship is average and needs more training. Space attribute swordsmen are the kings of swordsmen. All right, if you want to join Mingyi Sacred College, you'll have to take it one step at a time. As long as you can take it step by step, it will mean success. The middle-aged man pointed to the stairs in front and said to Wang Xian. Wang Xian nodded his head. Looking over, he lifted his feet and walked up. When he stepped on the stairs, he felt a strong pressure that made his mind and body sink. However, this didn't affect him much as he continued to walk up. Extraordinary temperament. Is he a disciple of some big family? But he doesn't look like one. Or did he come from somewhere else? The middle-aged man looked at Wang Xian from behind with his eyes sparkling. He had the strength of a void sword emperor, but he had to admit that this disciple who wanted to join Mingyi Sacred College had an extraordinary temperament. This was the youth with the best temperament he had ever seen. Shaking his head, he didn't think too much about it. In any case, the Sacred Academy didn't have any requirements for its disciples. As long as they were qualified, they could enter. To enter an advanced academy, one would need to have some qualifications and status. One had to belong to Mingyi Sacred College. Step by step, Wang Xian walked upwards. When he was halfway up, he started to hallucinate. This staircase was a test of endurance. After a long period of cultivation, one must be able to withstand the baptism and test of time. These endurance tests were nothing to Wang Xian. He easily arrived at the top of the stairs, at the gate of the Sacred Academy. Very good, very good. It's rare to see you pass the test so easily. What's your name? From now on, you'll be my student. You can call me instructor he. Let's go. I'll take you to the academy to meet the other students. As mentor he spoke, he waved his arm. Wang Xian could feel the power of space shrouding him. In the next second, he appeared on a floating island. This floating island wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. It had a radius of 100 kilometers, and there were some buildings on it. These are your students. Including you, I have a total of more than 50 students. Most of the time, you will be cultivating alone. Every year, I will teach you some swordsmanship, application techniques, and insights on breaking through shackles. You can also voice out your doubts. As long as you enter the Holy Academy, all of these will be free, including accommodation. In addition, I will teach you the basic cultivation method of the Eternal Swordsman realm. Apart from these, if you need anything else, you will have to buy it yourself. Teacher he brought him to the center of the floating island and introduced him one by one. Student Wang Xian thanks teacher he for your guidance. Wang Xian cupped his fist and thanked him. At least in terms of space attribute, teacher he was qualified to teach him. This is the space sword technique and cultivation method provided by Mingyi Sacred College to the disciples. You can cultivate for a year first. If you have any questions, you can come and ask next year. There is also a Ming Yi Sacred College student handbook on it. There are some things to take note of and all the situations in the college. Take a look at it. It will be useful for you. Besides, this is a communication device for the disciples of Ming Yi Sacred College. You can learn about the situation from it when you are free. The communication device will guide you to where you live. Teacher, he explained to him and added, the best way to cultivate the space attribute is to combine it with swordsmanship. The Sacred College will provide you with a suitable swordsmanship for free. Of course, if you have learned stronger swordsmanship in the past, you don't have to learn the swordsmanship of the Sacred College. Thank you, teacher, he. Wang Xian thanked him again. Instructor, he chuckled and left immediately. Wang Xian picked up the communication device and switched it on. There was a guide on it, and he came to a house. As a member of the Sacred College, he had a place to stay even though he was a new student. Moreover, it was a very nice place to stay. It was comparable to a villa on Earth and was very beautiful. The energy in the room was obviously much stronger than the outside world. Clearly, there was an array similar to the Spirit Gathering array. Not bad. No wonder it's a top-notch force. Wang Xian said. Compared to sacred grounds and forbidden grounds, the Sacred College had more freedom. The teachers wouldn't teach them all the time. Wang Xian browsed through a few books and understood some information about Ming Yi Sacred College. Ming Yi Sacred College was huge and had many students. There were 10 mentors who cultivated the space attribute. Each mentor had more than 50 students. The other 9 attributes were further divided into sorcery and swordsman. There were even more of them. It was dozens of times more than the space attribute. Those who could join the Sacred College were either incredible geniuses or had cultivation above the eternal realm. Wang Xian learned about cultivation, treasure grounds, library, treasure chamber, mission chamber, and other related information in the Sacred Institute. After which, he opened up 2 more secret manuals on cultivation. One was a swordsmanship book. One was a swordsmanship that was very suitable for space swordsmen. The name of this swordsmanship was Haunting and Disappearing Spirits. The other was a book on absorbing space attribute, understanding space, and breaking through the shackles. All of them were very basic. Chapter 39:21. Although they are ordinary books, they are indeed very useful to me. Wang Xian mumbled to himself as he looked at the 2 books on space, attribute cultivation, and space sword technique. This was one of the more formal books that he had come into contact with regarding the cultivation of the space element. In the outside world, such books could be considered top-notch. After all, they were the foundational cultivation arts of the Sacred Academy. Wang Xian browsed through the books on space attribute cultivation. There were many books on it, and they were very practical. To Wang Xian, they were very useful. He sat on a chair and carefully looked at it, comprehending it. After reading it for half a month, he had completely understood the entire book. That's right, he had completely absorbed it. Although Wang Xian was unfamiliar with the cultivation of the space attribute, his physique, comprehension, memory, and analytical abilities had all reached the pinnacle of the various universes. This was like a genius who had already mastered a dozen languages and then went to learn a new language. In terms of learning speed, it was definitely not something a primary school student could compare with. After mastering the contents of the book, Wang Xian opened the sword technique book. The appearance of gods and ghosts. The name sounded very strange, but it was also very consistent with the core of this sword technique. This was a sword technique that was completely integrated with the spatial attribute. The strength of the spatial attribute lay in the element of surprise. By fusing sword techniques with the spatial attribute, one's attacks would be strange and terrifying. It was unfathomable and extremely strange. Wang Xian took a look and quickly mastered it. Although he did not know much about swordsmanship, his realm was too high. His comprehension of techniques was even more terrifying. However, Wang Xian felt that this sword technique was very ordinary, even though it was compatible with the space attribute. He wanted to see if the Tianyuan swordsmanship could be combined with the space attribute. Wang Xian mumbled to himself. There was a better heavenly Yuan swordsmanship. There was no need to learn this ordinary swordsmanship. He took out the Heaven Origin sword art and looked at it one by one. He practiced it until he reached the end of his comprehension. The limit of this understanding had also reached the level of a void god emperor. In terms of sword techniques, there were not many who were stronger than him under the void god emperor stage. After all, the heavenly Yuan sword skill in his hands was too terrifying. When Wang Xian came back to his senses, he realized that almost a year had passed. He shook his head. Cultivation knew no time. Just a little bit of understanding had taken a year. After that, Wang Xian looked at the time and started cultivating again to absorb the space energy. While he was cultivating, Wang Xian's real body came out and left immediately. I need to get some space stones to speed up my cultivation. With enough space stones, I can also go to some of the treasured lands of the Holy Academy to cultivate. Wang Xian mumbled to himself. With a swift move, he arrived at one of the troublemakers in the city in the sky and sat down in an inn. Then, he took out his communicator and looked at it. In the sword and magic universe, there was no universal artificial intelligence, but they had communicators. However, these communicators were usually regional in nature and could not connect to the entire universe. Mingyi could see what was going on in this area through the communicator the Sacred Institute had given him. Then, he searched for it. Naturally, he was searching for those experts and forces that had a bad reputation or had committed many evils. That's right. Wang Xian was prepared to rob the poor and help the rich. Now he was very poor and needed to help himself. After searching for a while, he quickly locked onto a family. Interesting. Ming Yi, the Magic Kingdom under the Sacred Institute, the 1,000-grade Magic Kingdom. The king is absurd, tyrannical, and cruel. You shall be the one. Wang Xian smiled. With a swift move, he arrived at the location of the teleportation formation. Through the teleportation formation, Wang Xian was immediately sent to the capital of the 1,000-grade Magic Kingdom. Wang Xian hovered above the capital, locked onto the location of the palace, and flew over. In the void, any surveillance and defense measures were ineffective against Wang Xian. This was equivalent to an immortal coming to the mortal world. Hovering in the sky, Wang Xian performed the soul-sucking technique and obtained some information. He locked onto the king of the 1,000-grade Magic Kingdom, an existence at the level of the Sword Emperor of the Void. Such strength was sufficient to rule over the entire Magic Kingdom. He was also the son of an elder in the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute. When he arrived at the location of the harem of the 1,000-grade Magic Kingdom, Wang Xian looked at the king below and waved his arm. The king did not sense anything. The concubines around him also fell to the ground without any reaction. Soul-sucking. Wang Xian absorbed the memories in his mind and destroyed them with a wave of his hand. Half an hour later, Wang Xian emptied the treasury of the 1,000-grade Magic Kingdom and returned to the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute. Subsequently, Wang Xian began to speed up his cultivation with the help of the space stones. Everything was so simple and casual. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Xian didn't want to be too high-profile and kill, he could even annihilate the entire Ming-Yi Sacred Institute to collect all kinds of cultivation techniques and cultivation treasures. But there was no need for that. Wang Xian wouldn't kill the innocent and didn't want to be too high-profile in this unfamiliar universe. All he wanted was to quickly improve his space power. The Ming-Yi Sacred Institute was just a transition for him. He didn't intend to stay here for long. Cultivation. With a complete path of cultivation and sufficient space stones, Wang Xian's cultivation would be much easier. Before long, with a large number of space stones and a strong absorption speed, Wang Xian easily broke through to rank 5 Eternal Swordsman. Dang dang dang. At this time, the bell for the start of class rang. Wang Xian opened his eyes, moved, and flew out. The sound echoed out across the entire island, and quite a few students flew out of their rooms and then vanished without a trace. With a jolt of his mind, Wang Xian sensed the place where Minter he was explaining. He teleported to the side of a river. In front of him, Minter he was sitting and drinking tea calmly. Around him, a group of students was sitting respectfully in their seats. Wang Xian looked around and saw only over 20 students. It was not necessary to come to class every time. Many students might not come even once in a few hundred years. In theory, one could study in the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute for hundreds of millions of years. In these hundreds of millions of years, the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute had an assessment standard. If one passed, he could participate in the assessment to enter the Advanced Sacred Institute. Therefore, it was normal for some students to not attend classes for hundreds of years, or even thousands of years. To an eternal swordsman from an ordinary family, it was extremely precious to have a Void Sword Emperor to teach them once a year. After all, some of the Void Sword Emperors could already establish a powerful family in some places. Over here, there was no need to ask questions in class. This was also a luxury for the strongest experts from the magic nation that Wang Xian met in the desert. Chapter 3922. Alright, the class is about to begin. Focus. Ming Yi, on a floating island in the Sacred Academy, Minter he glanced at all the students who had just arrived and said. The 20 or so students who had arrived immediately sat upright and still, their gazes fixed on Tutor He. Before the class starts, I'd like to introduce our new student, Wang Xian. You guys should take care of each other in the future. Minter he looked at Wang Xian and introduced him to the surrounding students. Wang Xian stood up plainly and looked at the students. I'll be looking forward to your guidance. Around him, 7 to 8 girls looked at Wang Xian. Their eyes flickered as they sized him up. Some of the young men looked at Wang Xian. Some nodded, while some remained expressionless. There were also a few who looked envious. None of those who could cultivate to the eternal realm were ugly. With their strength, they could change their looks. However, there was one thing that couldn't be changed. That unique aura. Wang Xian had an inexplicable temperament about him. Even Minter he was a little surprised by this temperament. At the very least, his aura as the Void Sword Emperor couldn't be compared to Wang Xian. Wang Xian's aura was naturally the unique aura of a king of an elite race, a top-notch expert in the Nine-Source universe, and an invincible killer. Such an aura couldn't be cultivated easily. Next, I'll start the class. Feel free to ask any questions you have. Minter he said to them. Next, it was time for the students to raise their questions about their cultivation. This was also the main content of the class. They would raise all their doubts and Minter he would answer them. The incoming students were all eternal swordsmen. Above them was the immortal Sword King, while Minter he was the Void Sword Emperor. With such a huge difference, Minter he could easily answer any question. He could also share his unique insights. Wang Xian stopped for a while, but he didn't feel bored. The space attribute was a brand new attribute to him in the Nine-Source universe. Even though Wang Xian was strong, he would need a long time to understand it. If someone could help him analyze, it would be much faster. One class lasted for a month, and Wang Xian felt that he had gained something. Wang Xian returned to his room and continued his cultivation. Now that he didn't lack cultivation resources, his cultivation speed was fast. In the second year, he stopped for a month in class again. Following that, Wang Xian continued his cultivation. Time passed slowly, and 10,000 years quickly passed. Wang Xian walked out of one of the treasured cultivation grounds of Ming Yi Sacred College with a faint smile on his face. The Sacred Institute's treasured land required magic stones to cultivate in. Wang Xian had annihilated the king of a magic nation and emptied the national treasury. Naturally, he would not be lacking in these resources. Cultivating here was much faster than just using the spatial stone. After 10,000 years of cultivation, Wang Xian's realm had risen to the 8th Order Eternal Divine Lord realm. This cultivation speed was already very terrifying. This was mainly because Wang Xian had piled up a large amount of resources. Moreover, he could break through the shackles of this realm easily. It's still a little slow. I'm just an eternal swordsman. I'm afraid I'll need another 10,000 years to break through to the immortal Sword King realm. Who knows how long I'll need to reach the 7th or 8th Order Sovereign realm. This was the first time Wang Xian felt that cultivation was troublesome. In the past, as long as he had enough resources, he would be able to break through, but now he could not. Forget it, I'll cultivate bit by bit. Wang Xian shook his head. There was nothing he could do about it. He disappeared in an instant and returned to his residence, where he began to practice his sword techniques. Tianyuan swordsmanship. He had fully mastered the Tianyuan swordsmanship that he could execute at his current realm. However, mastering it was one thing. He wanted to integrate the Tianyuan swordsmanship into the space attribute. Or perhaps, he wanted to integrate the space attribute into the Tianyuan swordsmanship. This required some thinking and comprehension. Tianyuan swordsmanship was an invincible sword technique, and Wang Xian valued it more. Swordsmanship of this level was about accumulating power and sealing. As an 8th order eternal swordsman with the same energy in their bodies, how could one's attack be stronger than others? As the saying went, strength could break all techniques. How could one win when both had the same strength and speed? Especially when both could release a large area of effect attack. Under such circumstances, it would be very difficult to kill someone of the same level. This was because no matter how good one's technique was, the other party could only wave a terrifying sword aura from afar. If one could not get close, all the techniques would be useless. The terrifying aspect of the Tianyuan swordsmanship was somewhat similar to arrays. While attacking, it would condense a point in the air and detonate it. This point would affect the surrounding energy, and it could release a terrifying burst of energy. This was the terrifying aspect of the Tianyuan swordsmanship. After Wang Xian obtained this haircut, he felt that it was much more terrifying than the array sorcerers of the sorcerer tribe. Wang Xian could also feel the strength of the Tianyuan swordsmanship after cultivating it. This was also the reason why he was willing to cultivate it. Dang dang dang. 1,000 years after Wang Xian cultivated the Tianyuan swordsmanship, a series of bells rang in Wang Xian's mind. He sheathed his sword and looked towards the center. Today seems to be the day of the assessment. The assessment that happens once every 20,000 years. Wang Xian thought of some of the rules of Ming-Yi's Sacred Institute and asked. His figure flickered, and he arrived at the classroom instantly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. When he arrived, many figures appeared around him. Compared to the students that Wang Xian had met in his previous classes, the number of people this time was much more. He sensed that there were already 62 students around him. It was obvious that more students had joined in the past 10,000 years. Not a single student had not returned from the assessment that happened once every 20,000 years. This was also the rule of the Ming-Yi Sacred College. The assessment was mandatory. When all the students arrived, some young men and women sized up the unfamiliar faces around them. All of them had curious looks on their faces. I wonder what realm Su Xinruan, Nie Yue, and the rest have reached in the past 20,000 years. They should be rank 9 or pinnacle eternal swordsmen soon. It has only been 30 million years since they entered the Ming-Yi Sacred College, and they have already advanced from rank 1 eternal swordsman to where they are now. Impressive. Discussions could be vaguely heard from the surroundings. From time to time, some gazes would look towards the center. Wang Xian looked over and saw a few figures in the center. 5 figures, 3 men and 2 women, exuding a prideful aura. Rank 7 Eternal Swordsman, Rank 8, Rank 8, Rank 7, Rank 9, Rank 9. Wang Xian could tell their strength with a glance, but his expression did not change. Chapter 39-23. Are you all here? When the students arrived, Minter he appeared as well. His gaze swept across every student. When his gaze landed on Wang Xian, he was slightly stunned and his eyes flickered. With Wang Xian's current strength, he could naturally sense it clearly. Eternal Swordsman Rank 8. This was completely out of his expectations. 20,000 years ago, he clearly remembered that Wang Xian was only a rank 4 Eternal Swordsman. Could he be hiding something? However, he only paused for a moment before shifting his gaze. An existence in the Eternal Realm was not worthy of his attention as to whether he was hiding his strength or not. After all, an Eternal Swordsman was like a child to the Void Sword Emperor. According to the usual practice, all students will have a spar to determine the ranking. Minter he continued, I hope that one of our students can enter the top 20 of our Sacred Institute. The rewards for this test will be very generous. Every 20,000 years, it was also the time for all the students of the Sacred Institute to have a spar. At that time, the Sacred Institute would have a ranking. The students in the elementary schools were all below Immortal Realm. The advanced schools were for Immortal Realm students. As for the Void Realm existences, they would have to join the Sacred Institute and become a core disciple or expert. Every 20,000 years, the Sacred Institute would have a disciple tournament and a ranking. Students with a higher ranking would be able to gain great benefits. This reward was extremely tempting to all the students. The grand competition that was held once every 20,000 years was a grand occasion for students. And those who could make it to the top 30 were all the geniuses of the Sacred Institute. If they performed well, they might even be taken in as a disciple by some elite experts. If they were taken in as a disciple by a universe-level expert, it would be a meteoric rise. Therefore, the students of the Sacred Institute valued this ranking very much. Every 20,000 years, they would give it their all in the spar. This was a great opportunity for them. Now that they switched on the communication device, the ranking of the students of the Sacred Institute was very eye-catching. When the students heard Teacher He's words, their eyes shone with excitement. They couldn't help but discuss softly. Wang Xian didn't know anyone around him. He stood there quietly. He was interested in the upcoming spar. He wanted to see how strong he had become. This time, I will try my best to enter the top 30. In the middle, a young man clenched his fist and said with a smile, Rank 9 Eternal Swordsman in the class, come out and stand here. 8th rank Eternal Swordsman, stand here and then line up. With a wave of his arm, Minter he drew a few positions in the air and said to all the students. Wang Xian moved and came to the rank 8 position of the Eternal Swordsman. The other 8th rank Eternal Swordsman students also came here. When they saw Wang Xian, they were taken aback and their faces were filled with astonishment. Fellow student, are you also a rank 8 Eternal Swordsman? I've never seen you before. Among the 4 8th Order sovereigns, the only girl looked at Wang Xian curiously and asked, 20,000 years ago. Wang Xian nodded at him. Wow, I didn't expect this. It seems like you were already quite strong when you came. Impressive, impressive. Hello, my name is In Shuiyue. The girl said in surprise and stretched out her hand with a smile. Wang Xian. Wang Xian nodded with a smile and shook hands with her. Hee, let's work hard together this time and see if we can get into the top 200 in the school. In Shuiyue said to Wang Xian with a smile. Wang Xian nodded. Shuiyue, with your strength, it should be easy for you to get into the top 200. Set your target higher. At least top 150. The 9th rank Eternal Swordsman in the front looked at her and said with a smile. He looked at Wang Xian. I'll be satisfied with the top 200. This time, our class will be depending on the two of you, Su Xinruan and Ye Yue. In Shuiyue looked at the young man and woman in front of her and said, in their class, only 2 people had reached the 9th rank of the Eternal Swordsman realm. This time, my target is the top 30. Su Xinruan said with fighting spirit in his eyes. Quiet. Next, we'll be sparring. Students of the same level will spar with each other, 2 by 2. At this time, Minterhe's voice sounded. Everyone immediately quieted down and began the sparring. Students of the same level would spar with each other to determine the strongest student of the same level. The strongest student of the same level could challenge those who were a level higher than them. However, under normal circumstances, they would not challenge those who were of a higher level. It was basically difficult to defeat those who were of a higher level. One by one, the sparring began. Every student was shrouded in the space defense power cast by Minter He. This space defense power was equivalent to the personal defense of each student. Whoever's defense was breached first would basically be the first to lose the match. As the sparring began, the rest of the students watched from the sidelines. Wang Xian agreed with such a teaching method. The 9-source universe and the Sword and Sorcerer mainland were still very different. The duration of the sparring wasn't very long. In a fight of the same level, if there was no winner after all the moves were used, it would mean that there was no difference. Because they were all spatial attribute cultivators, it would be difficult to kill the other party if there was no winner as soon as possible. The sparring ended one after another. There were a total of more than 60 students. In just a few days, it was the turn of the 8th rank Eternal Swordsman students. In the class, there were a total of 5 8th rank Eternal Swordsman students, including Wang Xian. Who's first? Minter he looked at Wang Xian and the rest as he spoke. In Shuiyue should be stronger among us. Let her go last. Let's go first. A young man looked at the 4 of them and said with a smile. Sure. Minter he nodded his head. In that case, Wang Xian and I will start first. The young man who spoke looked at Wang Yuan and gestured with his hand. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head. He also wanted to see how different he was from the 8th rank Eternal Swordsman students of the same level in the Sword and Sorcerer mainland. In a flash, The two of them arrived in the sky. Minter he waved his arm and shrouded them with space force to prevent them from getting hurt. Once this energy was broken by the other party would win. When did Wang Xian enter our Mingyi Sacred College? How is he so strong? I know. He joined us 20,000 years ago, but I didn't expect him to be so strong. The battle between the 8th rank Eternal Swordsman experts will be interesting. Chapter 3924. Yuan Hua, please enlighten me. The young man flew up into the sky, cupped his fists at Wang Xian and spoke. Wang Xian, please enlighten me. Wang Xian cupped his fists at him as well and replied. Below them, all the students looked at them with sparkling eyes. In Mingyi Sacred College, battles of this level were extremely exciting. Eternal Swordsmen at rank 8 were already considered top-notch students. Let's begin then. As Yuan Hua spoke, he waved his hand and a sharp sword appeared in his hand. He then charged towards Wang Xian. Wang Xian swung his arm and blocked it easily. The probing strike ended, and Yuan Hua instantly vanished from sight. Wang Xian watched as he drew a circle around himself with the long sword in his hand, following which, he sensed something and attacked behind him. The circle turned into an extremely sharp space disc and attacked Yuan Hua. Yuan Hua adjusted his eyebrows slightly. With a swing of his arm, the sharp sword in his hand condensed a powerful sword radiance and slashed at Yuan Hua. In the next instant, Wang Xian disappeared and reappeared beside Yuan Hua. Spatial teleportation. As a space swordsman, when one teleported to a certain place, they would be able to sense the fluctuation of space. Therefore, the moment Wang Xian appeared, Yuan Hua's sharp sword pierced towards him. Disperse. Wang Xian saw the sharp sword in his hand trembling. In front of him, the space disk that was slashed by Yuan Hua disintegrated into a series of sharp swords. The sharp swords attacked Yuan Hua at a terrifying speed. At the same time, he raised his longsword to meet Yuan Hua's attack. Shit! Yuan Hua sensed this and his expression changed. Bam! The sharp swords collided. Both of them had similar spatial powers. However, Yuan Hua's back was attacked by over a dozen sharp swords. Bam bam bam. Intense collisions resounded as cracks appeared on the spatial barrier around Yuan Hua's body. Yuan Hua's expression changed drastically as his body stiffened. Thanks for letting me win. Wang Xian looked at him and cupped his fists. Damn, it can't be. That's fast. The winner is decided just like that? This is a complete instant kill. Yuan Hua came to Mingyi Sacred College thousands of years ago. How could he be defeated so easily? That Wang Xian's sword art is more ingenious. When the students below saw this, their faces were filled with shock. It was extremely rare for someone of the same level to defeat another opponent so quickly. One had to know that they were both spatial cultivators, and it was extremely difficult to determine a victor between them at the same level. His swordsmanship might not be as good as the other parties, but as long as he could escape, it would be difficult for him to be defeated. Which of the previous battles didn't last for an hour? The outcome of the battle was already decided after just one exchange. What a powerful sword technique. Inshuiyue looked at Wang Xian and exclaimed, not bad. Your sword technique is very ingenious. Minter he looked at Wang Xian, nodded his head and praised him. Wang Xian chuckled. With a swift move, he flew back to his previous position. Yuan Hua's expression changed slightly as he flew back. He did not look too good. He found it hard to accept that he had been defeated so easily by someone of the same level. Let's go next. On the side, the other two rank 8 Eternal Swordsman students looked at each other and began to exchange pointers. This time, the strength of both sides was about the same. After fighting for an hour, there was still no clear winner. Subsequently, both of them did not continue fighting. Wang Xian, you did not expend much energy when you exchanged pointers with Yuan Hua just now. Let's exchange pointers. After the battle, Inshuiyue looked at Wang Xian and spoke. Her strength had reached the pinnacle of rank 8 Eternal Swordsman, and she could advance to rank 9 Eternal Swordsman at any time. She was publicly recognized as the strongest rank 8 Eternal Swordsman in the class. She stared at Wang Xian with fighting spirit in her eyes. Sure. Wang Xian nodded his head and instantly teleported to a position in the sky. In Shueyue followed closely behind. Minter he cast 2 barriers to protect them. Wang Xian, you are very strong. Let's start now. In Shueyue stared at Wang Xian and spoke directly. All right, I'm going to start. Wang Xian nodded his head. Waves of energy were injected into the long sword, and he began swinging it in front of him. Seeing the energy on Wang Xian's sharp sword, In Shueyue was alarmed. Wang. He didn't give Wang Xian many chances. He immediately teleported to Wang Xian's side and enveloped him with the tearing force of space. Sword net. In Shueyue snorted coldly as she displayed her powerful swordsmanship. Under the shroud of the sword net, Wang Xian felt the surrounding space was a little unstable, and he could not teleport at all. The densely packed sharp sword shrouded him. Sword chime. Wang Xian shook his arm, and the sharp sword in his hand floated in front of him and began to spin. Bam, bam, bam. Continuous sounds of collision were heard, and the attacks of the sword net were all blocked. Unity of sword chime. Clang. When all the sword net was blocked, a sharp sword condensed from space attribute appeared above Wang Xian's head and instantly struck at In Shueyue. This attack made In Shueyue's heart tremble violently. How can it be so sharp? In Shueyue's figure moved, and she quickly teleported away. However, Wang Xian, who was staring at her, sensed the fluctuation of space and attacked in that direction. Bam! The moment In Shueyue appeared, a sword radiance slashed at her head. Ka-ka! The space barrier on him gradually cracked open. How can you sense the location of my teleportation so quickly? In Shueyue saw the sharp sword slashing at her head, and her expression changed slightly as she asked Wang Xian in shock. Thanks for letting me win. Wang Xian smiled, cupped his fist, and did not answer. The advancement of realm. It did not only mean an increase in destructive power, but also an increase in sensitivity and reaction. The body of Wang Xian's Void Divine Dragon was extremely terrifying in terms of its sensitivity, let alone other aspects. Even sensing required the support of his own energy. However, under the subtleties, his sensitivity was still a few levels higher than those of the same level. Therefore, the moment In Shueyue teleported, Wang Xian could sense the location of her teleportation. After all, teleportation required the use of the power of space. All he needed to do was to sense the fluctuation of the power of space. What a strong sensitivity. Mentor he looked at Wang Xian with flickering eyes and complimented, Isn't this brother Wang Xian too strong? He's insane. How can he be so terrifying when he's at the same level? Also, what kind of sword art is he using? It feels so strong. His sensitivity can actually sense the location of In Shueyue's teleportation. Impressive. It shouldn't be a problem for him to fight against 2 or 3 people of the same level, right? Chapter 39-25. Exclamations of astonishment could be heard from the surroundings. All the students looked at Wang Xian in shock. Their eyes were filled with envy. Even Su Xinruan and Nye Yue, who were standing right in front, were looking at Wang Xian with astonishment. It was not easy to defeat an expert of the same level so easily. Wang Xian, do you still want a challenge? Do you want to have a spar with an eternal swordsman at the 9th rank? Minter he looked at Wang Xian and asked, Challenging a rank 9 eternal swordsman? Wang Xian pondered for 2 seconds before nodding his head. I want to give it a try. All right. Instructor he nodded. It can't be, right? He wants to challenge someone of a higher level? It's basically impossible to challenge someone of a higher level. As long as an eternal swordsman at the 9th stage uses all his strength to defend, he won't be able to break his attack. That's right. Only swordsmen of spatial attribute, like us, can challenge swordsmen of other attributes. It's almost impossible for swordsmen of the same attribute to challenge swordsmen of other attributes. When the surrounding students heard that Wang Xian wanted to challenge someone of a higher level, they were shocked. The possibility of skipping realms to challenge another spatial attribute expert was too small. Maybe he just wants to see the strength of an eternal swordsman. Some students whispered to each other, Oh, I didn't expect you to want to challenge people of our level. In that case, let me give you some pointers. Su Xinrui looked at Wang Xian and raised his eyebrows. In a flash, he arrived at the top. He looked at Wang Xian with his lips curled. There was a hint of arrogance on his face. Although Wang Xian's strength had exceeded his expectations, he had more than a dozen ways to let Wang Xian know how big the gap between them was. A rank 8 Eternal Swordsman challenging a rank 9 Eternal Swordsman was simply delusional. Wang Xian looked at Su Xinrui. Without any change in his expression, he teleported to the sky. Buzz buzz. Two streams of energy shrouded them. Minter he looked at Wang Xian and said, "If you are hit twice in one attack, it will be considered a failure." And Wang Xian nodded to Minter he. The 9th stage Eternal Swordsman's attack power was not something he could resist. Being hit twice was enough to kill him. "Come, let me see your sword skills." Su Xinrui stood there with one hand behind his back as he spoke to Wang Xian casually. He did not take Wang Xian seriously at all. What he wanted was to enter the Academy's top 30 in this assessment. Pay attention. Don't be careless. Wang Xian looked at the arrogant Su Xinrui and said plainly, "Hee, I can give you 10 seconds to attack." Su Xinrui looked at Wang Xian with a smile. "The gap is too big. Brother Run, you don't have to worry at all." "Yeah, Run Bro is someone who wants to enter the top 30 this year. He's already very strong among those of the same level. Even if you give him a 10-second advantage, it'll still be a piece of cake. They probably won't even be able to break Run's defense." The students below began to discuss. When Wang Xian saw this, he shook his head slightly. Slowly, he gathered the space energy on the sharp sword. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the next instant, Wang Xian disappeared and teleported to the left of Su Xinrui. Su Xinrui sensed something and looked to the left with a smile. The moment Wang Xian came to the left, he immediately teleported to the right. Su Xinrui also turned to the right. This time, he had a mocking look on his face. Wang Xian continued to teleport to the front and back, as well as in other directions. Su Xinrui also looked at them with a mocking look. In the end, he shook his head. Wang Xian teleported to the position in front of him for the last time. In a second, he had completed more than 10 teleportations. 9 more seconds. When Su Xinrui saw Wang Xian returning to the front, he thought Wang Xian had no way to deal with him. Wang Xian shook his head when he saw the arrogant look on his face. Explode. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as he finished his sentence, sharp swords of space around Su Xinrui released a terrifying aura and attacked him instantly. The sudden attack, the sudden explosion, and the bizarre speed of the space left Su Xinrui with no time to react. Bam, bam, bam. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. One by one, the sharp swords hit his body. The space barrier around him crumbled instantly. This space barrier was equivalent to one of his lives. How is this possible? Su Xinrui, who was floating in the air, had already reacted. However, it was too late. His eyes widened in disbelief as he saw the space barrier crumbling around him. What kind of attack is this? His expression instantly turned ugly as he stared deadly at Wang Xian. Minter. Next. Wang Xian did not look at Su Xinrui. He turned to Minter he and said, "Great, a very strong sword technique." Minter he stared at him with radiance in his eyes. He was also slightly amazed by Wang Xian's sword technique. "Nye Yue, it's your turn." Minter he looked at the last rank 9 Eternal Swordsman, Nye Yue, and instructed, "I was careless just now. I haven't lost yet. I can defeat him in one move." Su Xinrui's expression changed drastically as he roared with indignation. How could he admit defeat? He was merely careless just now. He hadn't lost yet. What kind of sword technique is this? It's so horrifying. How could it break the defense of a rank 9 Eternal Swordsman so easily? It can't be. Even if Brother Run didn't move, the space barrier around him should be able to withstand the attack of an ordinary rank 9 Eternal Swordsman. How could it be broken in an instant? So strong. This Wang Xian is so strong. His attack is so strong. Brother Run was careless this time. When the students below saw this, their faces were filled with shock. Just now, they were still saying that Wang Xian couldn't even break Su Xinrui's defense. In the end, it was broken in 1 second. If not for the space barrier, Su Xinrui would have been dead. This attack was enough to kill a rank 9 Eternal Swordsman. Su Shinruin is a little angry now. Indeed, if he wasn't careless just now, he wouldn't have lost so badly. They whispered softly when they saw Su Shinruin's furious expression. Hearing Su Shinruin's indignant roar, Wang Xian shook his head slightly. Such an arrogant person wouldn't even know how he died. I can defeat you in one move. Su Shinruin saw Wang Xian shaking his head sarcastically. His expression darkened instantly. He changed his aura and wanted to teleport to Wang Xian's side. However, just as he was about to teleport, several space swords appeared around him out of nowhere. The sharp swords pierced through the space directly. However, at this moment, everyone felt as though the space had frozen. Su Shinruin's teleporting body was forced out of the space. The space swords were also suspended in front of Su Shinruin. Alright, you lost your life because of your carelessness. A defeat is a defeat. Below, Minter he made his move and spoke. Chapter 3926 SSS. This, Su Shinruin sensed the spatial shackles around him. He swept his gaze around and took a deep breath. His expression was incomparably ugly. He wasn't embarrassed because of what Minter he had said. Instead, it was because of the group of space swords around him that he felt extremely embarrassed. Wang Xian's attack wasn't limited to the previous attacks. There were more attacks with the same destructive force around him. He hadn't realized it yet. If Minter he hadn't stopped him, these space swords would have severely injured him even if they didn't kill him. To think that Wang Xian had hidden his attacks around Su Shinruin. If it weren't for Minter Su Shinruin would have suffered horrifying attacks. Oh my god, Wang Xian's strength isn't as simple as we thought. He even left an attack around Brother Run. Not simple. Not simple at all. Wang Xian has the strength to go against a rank 9 Eternal Swordsman. The surrounding students gasped when they saw this scene. Their faces were filled with shock. No one had expected Wang Xian to leave an attack around Su Shinruin. His strength was really terrifying. Wang Xian, you're really incredible. Let me have a taste of your strength. Nye Yue also had a solemn look on her face. She instantly came to Wang Xian and spoke to him. Su Shinruin might have been careless just now. However, after witnessing the second attack, Nye Yue had completely reigned in her contempt. She cupped her hands at Wang Xian. Please enlighten me. Wang Xian nodded. At the side, Su Shinruin's expression kept changing as he walked to the side. This time, he had lost a lot of face. Wang. 2 space barriers fell on Wang Xian and the rest. Without any hesitation, Wang Xian moved and disappeared in an instant. Nye Yue locked her eyes on Wang Xian as she sensed the changes in the surrounding space. Swoosh! She attacked in another direction instantly. Wang Xian had just appeared in another direction when he felt a sharp sword coming towards him. He held the sword in his hand horizontally. Bam bam! As the sharp sword blocked the attack, Wang Xian was sent flying a few thousand meters away uncontrollably. The gap between their realms was still there. However, Wang Xian wasn't injured. This time, he didn't teleport. Instead, he flew in the air. The sharp sword in his hand continued to swing, leaving behind sword mounds in the air. The sword tomb was the core of the Tianyuan sword technique. Setting up the sword mound would draw upon the surrounding energy to unleash an even more powerful attack. Lose. You could feel Wang Xian's strength and saw him swinging his sword around her. Without any hesitation, she shook her body and shrouded Wang Xian with the power of space. Spatial suppression. Since he was 1 level higher than Wang Xian, his greatest advantage was the space suppression. It suppressed the entire space, preventing Wang Xian from teleporting and greatly reducing his speed. They could even use the power of space to suppress the weak. Clang, clang, clang. With a wave of his arm, the sword mound around him immediately erupted, allowing him to break through Nye Yue's spatial suppression. Buzz. In the next instant, Wang Xian teleported behind Nye Yue and smiled. One-line sword lead. The one-line sword was drawn. This was one of the ways to use the Tianyuan sword technique. The essence of the Tianyuan sword technique lay in the sword tomb, not in the recruitment. With the sword mound as the core, the moves depended on the user. When Wang Xian came to Nye Yue's back, Sharp swords formed a line and attacked her from where he was just now. The sharp swords formed by the space attribute had the characteristics of the space attribute. Fast. Nothing was faster than the space attribute. Huh. Nyayue's eyes narrowed when she saw the attack of the one-line sword lead. Spacequake, break. She bellowed. A sword radiance that looked stronger than the one-line sword lead broke through it. The sword radiance cut through the one-line sword lead. However, what caused Nyayue to furrow her brows was that this string of swords seemed to be limitless. After she broke through it, it appeared again. Swoosh. At this moment, on the other side of him, another sword ray attacked her. This made her expression change completely. What a powerful sword technique. Her face was extremely solemn. Her body shivered, and she did not intend to continue defending. Instead, she teleported. Buzz. Her figure started to turn illusory. At the side, Wang Xian sensed the fluctuations in the surrounding space. With a wave of his arm, the two one-line sword leads flew in one direction. Bam bam. When Nyayue appeared in another position, the two one-line sword leads were already in front of her. What a strong sense to be able to sense where I teleported. Nyayue's expression changed again. She immediately waved the long sword in her hand. Endless sword slash. With a wave of her arm, terrifying swords that tore through space attacked the two one-line sword leads. Buzz. While she was defending against the attack, Wang Xian teleported again. Once again, the same attack was formed. This, Nyayue is actually in a passive position. She is completely under Wang Xian's control. Damn, it can't be. Nyayue is completely suppressed. What kind of sword technique is that? Why does it look so strange? His sword technique is strong and his sense of perception is terrifying. He can really fight beyond his level. Below, all the students were watching this exchange of pointers in shock. Su Xinruan was defeated partly because of his carelessness. But in his battle with Nyayue, Nyayue had put in 120% of her focus. Under such circumstances, she was completely suppressed. Oh no, the number of these strange swords is increasing. I can only attack continuously. Although I can withstand it with full defense, it can only last for a few seconds at most. The attack of one sword isn't strong, but I can't withstand it if it's continuous. Nyayue's expression was grim. She was in a dead end. She couldn't do anything in the face of such a strange attack. Nyayue's expression changed again when she saw Wang Xian's relaxed expression. He shouldn't have used his full strength. I've lost. Nyayue gritted her teeth and admitted defeat. Upon hearing that, Wang Xian revealed a smile. With a tap of the long sword in his hand, the one-line sword leads disappeared. Thanks for letting me win. He smiled and cupped his hands. Wang Xian, you? What kind of sword technique is that? Nyayue couldn't help but ask Wang Xian. She could feel that Wang Xian's sword technique was terrifying. The level of his sword technique was also very high. 9 Origin Sword Technique. Wang Xian replied casually. He didn't mention that this sword technique was called Heavenly Yuan Sword Technique. The two words Heavenly Yuan represented a very high level. Chapter 39-27. 9 Origin Sword Technique. Nyayue mumbled to herself when she heard Wang Xian. She cupped her hands at Wang Xian and flew back to her seat. This is unbelievable. He actually defeated Nyayue, and from the looks of it, he defeated her so easily. His strength is even greater than what he displayed just now. He's too strong. The 9 Origin Sword Technique he mastered is incredible. At this moment, all the students below looked at this scene in awe, their faces filled with shock. To defeat someone of a higher level with ease. Such strength was terrifying. This was the first time in Ming-Yi Sacred College that a swordsman of the space attribute could defeat someone of a higher level. Cultivators of the space attribute had always been able to defeat experts of other attributes. It was difficult to defeat someone of the same attribute. This time, Wang Xian did it. Given the strength that Wang Xian displayed, he can definitely compete for the top 30 in our Ming-Yi Sacred College. A young man couldn't help but exclaim. In Ming-Yi Sacred College, there were less than 100 students at the pinnacle of the Eternal Realm. Because of their space attribute, they could usually defeat those of a higher level. Eternal Swordsman, a rank 9 space attribute student, had a high chance of winning against pinnacle eternal swordsmen and eternal sorcerers of other attributes. This was the strength of the space attribute. Given the strength that Wang Xian had displayed, he could compete for the top 30. Very good. Given your strength, you can compete for the top 30. It will be of great benefit to you. Mentor, he looked at Wang Xian and said with a smile, "Yes, Mentor." Wang Xian nodded. As for his current strength, Wang Xian had a better understanding of it. Next, he could see the attacking methods of other attributes in the sword and sorcery continent. "Nye Yue, Su Xinruan, you two have a spar." Teacher He's gaze shifted to Nye Yue and Su Xinruan as he instructed. Yes. The two of them walked out again and had a spar. But this time, Su Xinruan had lost to Nye Yue, much to the surprise of all the students. This made him even more embarrassed. "All right, Wang Xian, Nye Yue, Su Xinruan, follow me." Mentor, he looked at them and said, "The rest of the students go back?" "Yes." Wang Xian and the rest responded. Mentor, he waved his arm and a wave of energy enveloped them, bringing them to the bottom. They were on a floating island in the sky above the academy. Tutor, he brought them to the center of the academy. "If you can rank in the top 3 in your class, I will also give you some rewards. For the next 50 years, you will cultivate in the mirror world. See if you can improve after 50 years. The 4 of them arrived at a special gate. The gate contained boundless spatial power, as if it was a spatial gate. 50 years from now, there will be a competition among the academy's disciples. At that time, all of you must work hard and strive to achieve a good result." Mentor, he said to them, "Thank you." Mentor, he. Nye Yue and Su Xinruan hurriedly expressed their gratitude as they looked towards the front with fervent gazes. "He, go ahead." Mentor, he gestured to them. With a wave of his arm, a wave of energy landed on the space door. An entrance slowly appeared on the space door. Buzz, buzz. Without any hesitation, Su Xinruan flew toward the entrance. "Wang Xian, this must be your first time here. This is one of the treasured spaces of our Ming-Yi Sacred College." Nye Yue looked at Wang Xian and said, "This is a treasured space. Even the students from the advanced schools of Ming-Yi Sacred College have to pay a hefty fee to enter. We can only enter it occasionally. Cultivating here for a day is about 10 times faster than cultivating in other places." Upon hearing her, Wang Xian nodded his head slightly. The two of them flew inside. Upon entering, Wang Xian realized that there were many strange mirrors in this place. Each mirror seemed to contain a unique space. The reason why this place is called the Mirror World is because of these space mirrors. These space mirrors contain boundless spatial power. You can just enter and cultivate inside. I'll go cultivate first. Nye Yue smiled at Wang Xian and said, "Let's spar again when we have the time." "Sure." Wang Xian nodded his head at her and entered a space mirror in a flash. As soon as he stepped in, waves of spatial power surged towards him. Here, he could even feel the compression of space. Cultivating here is much better than cultivating in the spell formation training rooms outside the Sacred Academy. This is equivalent to 10 times faster than cultivating in the spell formation training rooms. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he began to absorb. Buzz. He mobilized the surrounding spatial power and channeled it into his body. "It's a little slow. I can still speed up." Wang Xian closed his eyes and cultivated for a while. When he opened his eyes, he mumbled. He had just broken through to rank 8 Eternal Swordsman and was still a long way from rank 9 Eternal Swordsman. Even if he cultivated here for 50 years, he wouldn't be able to break through. With a thought, his real body appeared at the side and a wave of energy shrouded him. Roar, roar. The Void Divine Dragon let out a low roar and transformed into a Void Divine Dragon immediately. The huge Void Divine Dragon floated in the void. Its dragon scales flickered slightly as it rapidly absorbed the surrounding spatial power. At the same time, Wang Xian mobilized his energy to compress the surrounding spatial power to the side of the Void Divine Dragon. "It's twice as fast." Wang Xian was delighted when he sensed it. In this case, 50 years of cultivation here was equivalent to 1,000 years in the outside world. Although it wasn't enough to improve his strength, it was good enough. As he continued to cultivate, Wang Xian's real body floated at the side to prevent other experts from discovering the abnormality here. Time passed quickly. Buzz buzz. However, 10 years later, Wang Xian suddenly felt a weak fluctuation in space. He looked towards the depths of the mirror, and his eyes flickered. He moved and flew towards the depths immediately. The body of the Void Divine Dragon continued to cultivate in this place. Although the speed of teleportation was terrifying, Wang Xian's current strength wasn't comparable to ordinary spatial cultivators. He moved and immediately came to the deepest part of the mirror image realm. That was the place with the subtle fluctuation. Along the way, Wang Xian could clearly sense the existence of a restriction. However, this restriction didn't affect Wang Xian at all. He passed through it easily. When he came to the deepest part, a huge space mirror appeared in his sight. In this space mirror, there were unique flowers. This is a spatial treasure? Wang Xian's eyes flickered. Chapter 39:28. Wang Xian looked at the incomparably huge space mirror before him. He moved and entered it directly. Wang. When he entered silently, he immediately saw 3 old men sitting cross-legged and cultivating in the space mirror. Every old man was at the peak of the venerable realm. Moreover, they were all spatial attribute cultivators. The 3 old men did not sense Wang Xian's arrival. Wang Xian stood there and looked at the slightly illusory space flower at the side. From it, Wang Xian could sense a surge of space energy. It was extremely beneficial for spatial attribute cultivators. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before he waved his arm and shrouded the 3 old men with energy. Soul assimilation, he shouted softly, and all sorts of information entered his mind. Subsequently, Wang Xian waved his arm and plucked all the space flowers. Wang. He threw a soul return embryo fruit at the original position of the space flowers. Take it as a trade. Although it felt like a forced trade, the value of the soul return embryo fruit was much higher than these space flowers. These space flowers were only at the first order sovereign realm. Compared to the soul return embryo fruit, they were still a long way off. After obtaining some information, Wang Xian kept all the space flowers. With a jerk, he flew back to where he had come from. When he returned, he did not sense any changes in the mirror world. In fact, even the 3 old men who were sitting cross-legged and cultivating did not sense it at all. With this space flower, my cultivation speed will increase by a terrifying amount. Wang Xian looked at the space flowers and revealed a smile. Previously, he killed a king of the kingdom of magic and took away all the treasures in the treasury. However, there were not many spatial attribute treasures in the kingdom of magic. Moreover, in that kingdom of magic, the main attribute was fire. This space flower was the first spatial attribute treasure that Wang Xian had obtained. A first-order sovereign realm space flower was a great opportunity for a cultivator like the Eternal Swordsman. There were a total of 13 space flowers. Wang Xian took out a space flower and began to absorb it immediately. Wang. With such a treasure to aid his cultivation, Wang Xian's cultivation speed increased by more than 10 times. This brought a smile to his face. If he cultivated here for 50 years, it would be a piece of cake for him to advance 1 level. Time passed day by day. In the deepest part of the mirror world, of the 3 old men cultivating, the old man in the middle frowned slightly as his heart skipped a beat. He immediately opened his eyes and looked to the side. Not good. When he saw that all the mirror flowers had disappeared not far away, his expression changed drastically. He couldn't help but let out a low growl. What happened? The other 2 elders immediately opened their eyes and looked to the side as if they sensed something. In the next second, their pupils shrank slightly, and a look of horror appeared on their faces. Where's the mirror flower? How is this possible? What about the mirror flower? An old man roared in disbelief. The mirror world was the only spatial treasure land in Ming-Yi Sacred Academy. Moreover, in the depths of the mirror image world, there were over a dozen ruler-rank spatial-type mirror image flowers. A treasure of this level was a priceless treasure for their Ming-Yi Sacred Academy. To spatial swordsmen at the peak of the venerable realm like them, it was an extremely precious treasure. But now, they had all disappeared. They didn't even sense it before they disappeared. While this was unbelievable, it also made their scalps tingle. The The mirror flower was able to disappear right beside them without a trace. Just what rank would it take to accomplish such a feat? To be able to make the mirror flower disappear without a trace, naturally, it could also make them die without a trace. At the thought of this, cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. There seems to be a fruit tree over there. At this time, they saw a fruit that was emitting special energy where the mirror flower used to be. They focused their eyes and looked at each other. Report this matter to the dean, Yi Futian ordered. Without any hesitation, they immediately reported this matter. This matter was too terrifying for them. Wang Xian didn't know how shocking it was for the experts of Mingyi's Sacred Academy that he had taken the mirror flower away. At this moment, he had absorbed the information of the three old men and learned more about the cultivation method of spatial type. This was of great use to him. As a result, his comprehension of space force had reached a powerful level. Wang. After 30 years, Wang Xian easily broke through the shackles of rank 8 Eternal Swordsman and reached rank 9 Eternal Swordsman. At this stage, if he were to spar with Nie Yue and Su Xinruan, Wang Xian could defeat them in an instant. Wang. He continued cultivating. After 20 years, Wang Xian suddenly felt a wave of energy spreading towards him. With a thought, he immediately transformed into a human form. Under the shroud of this energy, Wang Xian came to the outside. At the same time, Nie Yue and Su Xinruan were also beside him. Right in front of him was Minter He. Clearly, the 50 years were up, and Minter He had forcefully brought them out. Looks like I have to find a time to leave this place. Wang Xian's harvest this time was not bad. He had obtained some sovereign-level spatial treasures. His cultivation from now on would be much faster. He didn't intend to continue cultivating in Mingyi Sacred Academy. Mingyi Sacred Academy was still too weak compared to the other sacred academies, Sacred Grounds, and Forbidden Grounds. There were no more than 5 sovereign-level experts in the entire Sacred Academy. As for whether there were any second-order sovereigns, Wang Xian didn't know. All in all, Mingyi Sacred Academy was weak. It was especially so for spatial attribute cultivators. The strongest were the 3 old men he had met. Pinnacle Universe Supremacies. Now that Wang Xian had absorbed their memories, he understood a lot about spatial attribute cultivation. If he wanted to continue his studies, he would go to a strong force. The prerequisite was that Wang Xian was prepared to go into seclusion for a period of time to raise his strength to the level of a universe supremacy. Let's go and meet the other outstanding disciples. Let's strive to get a good result. Minter He looked at them and said with a smile, "Yes, Minter." The 3 of them nodded their heads. A wave of spatial energy shrouded them, and they disappeared in an instant. Rooftop, 10,000 kilometers above Mingyi Sacred Academy. Here, a huge arena was suspended in the air. This was the arena that Mingyi Sacred Academy opened once every 20,000 years. It was also the arena for the ranking of the disciples in Mingyi Sacred Academy. Every competition was a grand event for all the cultivating students in Mingyi Sacred Academy. A competition between geniuses. If one could make it to the top 10, he would receive the attention of the experts in Mingyi Sacred Academy. It was a huge benefit. Chapter 39-29. The grand competition that happens once every 20,000 years has finally begun. I wonder who will be the champion today. Needless to say, it's 80% likely to be Goddess Iya. Senior Iya is currently the top student in our Mingyi Sacred College. With the space attribute and the strength of an eternal swordsman, no one will be a match for Goddess Iya. Almost. Goddess Iya is too strong. Everyone on the rankings is very strong. I wonder how many dark horses will appear today. There are dark horses every year. I wonder who will be the champion this year. On the rooftop of Mingyi Sacred College, the teachers and students of Mingyi Sacred College had all gathered around the central arena. As the student ranking competition that was held once every 20,000 years, this was an interesting event for all the students in their boring cultivation. Moreover, they might gain some inspiration and thoughts from watching the battles. Therefore, every time there was a student ranking competition, basically all the students would come to watch the competition. To those top students, this competition was undoubtedly a stage where they could amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. If they could achieve a good ranking, they would not only be rewarded handsomely, but they would also gain great fame. This would be of great benefit to their cultivation in the future. This competition is the same as the previous years. Only eternal swordsmen of rank 8 and above with the space attribute can participate. Swordsmen and magicians of other attributes have to be at the pinnacle of the eternal realm to participate. It will be an arena competition. The top 30 students of the Sacred College will guard the arena. Those who are confident can challenge the arena at any time. There is no limit to the number of times. At a corner of the rooftop, Minter he said to Wang Xian and the rest. This rule was mainly meant for Wang Xian. There were no complicated rules for the ranking competition that was held once every 20,000 years in the Sacred College. It was just a simple competition. The top 30 students of the previous cohort would guard the arena while the other students would challenge them. Of course, the students in the arena could challenge those who were ranked higher than them. The competition would end when there were no more challengers. Every ranking competition would last for a few years. This kind of rule could also select the true experts. Wang Xian nodded his head slightly when he heard this straightforward competition method. Straightforward. The strong were the strong, and the weak were the weak. Nye Yue, all the best. Brother Run, all the best. Wang Xian, all the best. At this time, cheers came from the back. They were all Minterhe students. There were more than 20,000 students in the Sacred Academy, but only 70 or 80 were qualified to participate in the ranking competition. They were students of the same teacher, so it was natural for them to support one of their own. Wang Xian looked back and nodded with a smile. In the surroundings, the instructors brought their outstanding students to the front. He waited quietly. Buzz. 10 minutes later, a figure appeared in the air above the sparring ring, quietly floating there. With a wave of his arm, a wave of energy spread out in all directions. When everyone saw this figure appear, they immediately quietened down. Buzz. Immediately after, the figure moved his palm, and a magic staff appeared in his hand. He tapped it lightly on the ground. Below the arena, a pyramid-like building made of space energy appeared beneath him. The entire illusory pyramid was divided into 30 compartments. There was a high platform in each compartment, and a young man stood on it. The group of young men scanned their surroundings indifferently. Their bodies exuded a strong sense of confidence. These were the top 30 students from the previous cohort. In the highest compartment, a girl in red tight-fitting training attire outlined her perfect curves. She had a faint smile on her exquisite face. She held a treasured sword in her hand and exuded a noble and arrogant aura. She was the champion of the previous cohort, Iya, the pinnacle eternal swordsman with the space attribute. Ming Yi was recognized as the goddess of the Sacred Academy. The second and third places were also the supreme talents of the Sacred Academy. It's Goddess Iya. She's really beautiful. Yeah, she's just too beautiful. Xiaoyi is also very handsome. He's ranked second now. Perhaps he will challenge Iya's position. Wow, when can I stand there? In the surroundings, all the students looked at the 30 shining students with envy in their eyes. Only by standing at that position would they have the chance to step into the Advanced Academy of the Sacred Academy. The rules of the arena are the same as before. We will come here from other places. At this time, the figure in the sky spoke, and his voice was heard by every student. Let's go over. Minter he said to Wang Xian and the rest. Wang Xian and the rest nodded. They moved and arrived in front of the illusory pyramid on the arena. Students were also flying over from the surrounding areas. Wang Xian landed on the ground and looked around. There were about 50 of them. After the competition begins, we will spar one by one. If a student is challenged consecutively, there will be time to recover in the middle. The figure in the sky continued. All right, let's start the challenge. I'll go first. I want to challenge Gu Cheng, who is ranked 30th. As soon as the figure in the sky finished his sentence, someone immediately issued a challenge. The first match began. Let's go, Wang Xian. We will just watch from the side. Nye Yue gestured to Wang Xian before flying towards the center. There were some seats in the center. The seats were divided into more than a dozen rows. The top few rows were occupied by some mentors. A competition of this level was a grand event for the students. However, to the mentors, it was just child's play. Many mentors and leaders of the Sacred Academy did not come. Only the mentors of the participating students were watching. There are advantages and disadvantages to challenging first. The advantage is that you can accumulate experience during this period. Of course, the disadvantage is that some of your trump cards and techniques might be exposed. Nie Yue said to Wang Xian after finding a seat and sitting down. Wang Xian nodded his head slightly. He wanted to take a look around and test his strength before leaving this place. He found a place to start his seclusion. Saint, why are you here? Haha, mentors, I'm here to take a look. Saint. At this moment, a voice came from behind. Huh. Nie Yue and Su Xinruan, who were beside him, were taken aback. They immediately looked behind. Space Saint, Wu Qitian. Su Xinruan narrowed her eyes and spoke with a tinge of passion. Space Saint? Wang Xian adjusted his eyebrows slightly when he heard this name. He looked over and saw a young man. The young man wore a yellow robe and held a yellow sword in his hand. The sword was engraved with unique magical patterns. He had an imposing appearance with a tinge of arrogance. Chapter 39:30. Brother Tian. Yi greeted the young man in a yellow robe from the center of the balcony of Ming-Yi Sacred Institute. Wu Qitian, the Space Saint of Ming-Yi Sacred Institute. From this title, one could tell his identity and status. Around Wu Qitian, a group of students stood around him with faces full of flattery. Sister Iya, the competition has started. Is there anyone challenging you? Wu Qitian smiled and asked Iya. Brother Tian, not yet. It has just started. However, there should be people challenging me later on. Iya also shook her head with a smile. Hee, don't worry, Sister Iya. You have already mastered the sword technique I taught you. Although it's not invincible, it's invincible in Ming-Yi Sacred Institute. Wu Qitian said confidently. Hee, I naturally believe that. After all, Brother Tian is just passing by on the path of invincibility. Iya nodded with a smile. Sister Iya will definitely be the champion in this competition. After all, she is under the guidance of our saint. That's for sure. Our saint has imparted his sword technique to Sister Iya, and she has mastered it completely. We might not see Sister Iya in the next competition. By then, Sister Iya will have entered an advanced academy. The surrounding students flattered him. Saint Su Xinruan, who was beside Wang Xian, looked over with anticipation and couldn't help but exclaim, Is he very powerful? Wang Xian looked at the Space Saint, who was surrounded by the crowd, and asked doubtfully. From what he could sense, this so-called Space Saint was only at the peak of the Void God Emperor realm. To him, this strength was a little weak. What do you think? He cultivated for more than 30 million years to reach the peak of the Eternal Sword Emperor realm. Along the way, he has always been invincible, not to mention the weight of the title of saint. He is one of the 10 great saints of our Ming-Yi Sacred Institute. God knows how long it will take for you to reach the level of the Space Saint. Perhaps you might never reach it. Su Xinruan said to Wang Xian coldly. Although the space attribute is very strong, it has always been known to be difficult to cultivate. At this moment, Nie Yu took a glance at Su Xinruan and whispered to Wang Xian, the Space Saint has reached such a level at the age of 30 million. His talent in cultivation of the space attribute is unparalleled within the Sacred College. I heard that the Space Saint is about to break through to the level of Sword Venerable of the universe. In the first Mystic Holy Institute, the title of Holy Sun represents the apex of the first Mystic Holy Institute's 10 major attribute disciples. Every single one of them is a genius that only appears once every 100 million years. Upon hearing Nie Yue, Wang Xian nodded his head slightly. He had also obtained some information about the Son of God from some of the memories he had absorbed. Ming-Yi was one of the 10 saints of the Sacred Institute, 6 magicians and 4 swordsmen. They were of different attributes. In addition, there were also saints and saintesses in the other holy lands and forbidden lands of the sword and magic universe. Usually, this represented the strength of the younger generation of the Sacred Academy. Many saints and saintesses would go out to gain experience and make a name for themselves. Ming-Yi, although the Sacred Academy was considered a very weak Sacred Academy, it still had saint sons and saint daughters. Wang Xian nodded his head slightly and wasn't too bothered by it. He turned his attention to the arena in front of him. The battle had already begun. Two students at the pinnacle of the eternal magician realm were fighting. In Wang Xian's view, the battle between magicians was somewhat similar to that between array sorcerers. The only difference was that a magician's casting time was much faster than a formation wizard's. Of course, their attack power would naturally be reduced. One was a fire element magician, the other a water element magician. Both parties' attacks were filled with immense power. Terrifying flames and water clashed in the air like living creatures. Fire dragons formed from flames, and water streams formed from water. Back and forth, the battle was extremely exciting. Wang Xian felt that this battle was much more exciting than the one in the Nine Origins universe. The Sword and Magic universe had an additional space element compared to the Nine Origins universe. However, their cultivation systems were slightly different. The experts here didn't have a god nation. This meant that they didn't need to upgrade their god nations to become stronger. From this point, it seemed that the Nine Origins universe had a huge advantage. In fact, the Nine Origins universe was one of the stronger forces among the other universes because of the existence of a god nation. The descent of a god nation could greatly increase one's strength. The most important thing was the means to protect one's life. In a battle between experts, the most important thing was the means to protect one's life. The disciples of the Sword and Magic universe didn't have such abilities. If they weren't a match, they might be killed by someone of the same level. This also made the attacking techniques and means of the Sword and Magic universe more intricate than the Nine Origins universe. This was because if one wasn't intricate and didn't work hard to improve, it would be easier for them to fall. The battle lasted for an entire day. In the end, the challenger didn't succeed. The student ranked 30th successfully defended the arena. Next, the challenges continued. One by one, the students challenged the ranked students. The battles broadened Wang Xian's horizons. Time passed day by day. Wang Xian had been watching for half a year. Beside him, Su Ruanxin and Nie Yue had both challenged. Currently, Nie Yue had challenged the 27th ranked student and succeeded. On the other hand, Su Ruanxin had challenged the 30th ranked student and failed. Challenge failed. Next. As time passed, the challenges weren't as intense as the beginning. Some of the students also had a better understanding of each other's strength. Wang Xian looked around and stood up slowly. Oh, student Wang Xian wants to challenge? Given your strength, you should be able to get into the top 20, right? Nie Yue said with a smile when she saw Wang Xian getting ready to challenge. Yeah, let's do it. Wang Xian nodded. Since he was here, he might as well have some fun. With a shift of his body, he teleported and landed at the highest position. After every battle, the illusory pyramid would appear. The challenger only needed to fly to a room with a name on the pyramid to challenge that student. Wang Xian's illusory figure gradually solidified at the highest position. Naturally, he had to challenge the strongest disciple of the Sacred Institute, Iya, the pinnacle eternal swordsman with space attribute. Since the start of the battle, no one had challenged Iya, who was in first place. This also represented Iya's prestige and strength. Huh, what? When Nie Yue saw Wang Xian appearing at the top, she was slightly taken aback as she revealed a shocked expression. Is he crazy? He actually wants to challenge Iya, who is in first place. Does he think he can fight someone 2 levels above him? Su Xinruan had been paying attention to Wang Xian when he was preparing to challenge. When he saw Wang Xian standing at the highest position, his expression froze. Chapter 39-31. Hey, look! Someone is challenging Iya, and it's an unfamiliar student. Who is he? I've never seen him before. He doesn't seem to be famous in our Mingyi Sacred College. Does he have the confidence and strength to challenge Iya? Who is he? He's not even in the top 30, and yet he dares to challenge Iya. Is he trying to get famous? When Wang Xian stood at the top, everyone was shocked. An unfamiliar face challenging Iya of Mingyi Sacred College was beyond everyone's expectation. Did he really have the strength, or was he trying to get famous? Sister Iya, someone is challenging you? Wu Qitian, the space saint, who was in the center, looked ahead with a smile as he spoke to Iya. I didn't expect someone to challenge me so soon. Hee hee, It's time for some exercise. Iya replied with a smile. A rank 9 eternal swordsman dares to challenge you? He's really overestimating himself. Wu Qitian looked ahead, shook his head, and spoke. Just a rank 9 eternal swordsman? How dare he challenge me with such strength? How boring. Disappointing. When Iya heard this, she raised her eyebrows slightly and revealed a look of disappointment. Hee, Sister Iya. You can easily kill someone like him. Wu Qitian shook his head. I have to accept the challenge. Brother Tian, I'll go over and kill him. Iya smiled. With a swift move, she appeared in front of Wang Xian instantly. Wang Xian challenge. Wang Xian cupped his fists when he saw Iya flying over. A rank 9 eternal swordsman is challenging me. Don't you think you're overestimating yourself? Iya sized Wang Xian up as she stood there without moving an inch. Huh. Rank 9 eternal swordsman? Space attribute? It can't be. He's one level lower than Iya, and yet he dares to challenge me? Although a space swordsman can challenge someone of a higher level, it depends on the opponent. Iya is at the pinnacle of the eternal swordsman realm and one of the best of the space attribute. Is he looking for a beating? They're not on the same level. When the surrounding students heard this, a look of astonishment appeared on their faces. A rank 9 eternal swordsman space cultivator challenging Iya? They were not on the same level. Please enlighten me. Upon hearing her words, Wang Xian's expression remained unchanged. With a flick of his palm, a sharp sword appeared in his hand. Interesting, but the gap is too big. The expert from Mingyi Sacred College, who was hovering in the air, waved his arm and shrouded Iya and Wang Xian with a surge of energy. As long as there was a slight crack in the energy in Wang Xian's body, it would mean failure. As for the energy on Iya's body, it would only be considered a loss if it completely collapsed. This was because their defenses weren't on the same level. This Wang Xian has actually broken through to the rank 9 Eternal Swordsman realm. I can't believe he broke through so quickly. When Nye Yue heard Iya's words, she revealed a shocked expression. When Wang Xian was a rank 8 Eternal Swordsman, he was already able to defeat her. Perhaps Wang Xian could really defeat Iya. Although he has broken through, Iya is not an ordinary peak Eternal Swordsman. Iya cultivates the Space Saint's sword technique. Seeing Wang Xian's breakthrough, Su Xinruan's expression changed slightly. However, he quickly spoke up. Nye Yu's eyes flashed. Iya wasn't a simple pinnacle Eternal Swordsman expert. However, she felt that Wang Xian wasn't simple either. He was extremely mysterious. When they were fighting, she could feel that Wang Xian hadn't unleashed his full strength. Begin. At this time, the expert from Mingyi Sacred Institute waved his arm, and the illusory pyramid-shaped shadow disappeared. With your strength, you're not qualified to fight with me. Get lost. When Iya saw the start of the battle, she moved her palm, and a sharp sword appeared in her hand. She slashed at Wang Xian with a cold look in her eyes. She didn't care about Wang Xian at all. Moreover, she made her move immediately. Streaks of horrifying space swords shrouded Wang Xian. She was prepared to kill Wang Xian in an instant to intimidate those reckless challengers. I've also reached the pinnacle Eternal Swordsman realm, and I'm also of the space attribute. Yet, I don't dare to challenge Iya. This guy is really arrogant. He's asking for trouble. I reckon he can be killed in an instant with one move. Among the top 30 students in the center, a student shook his head and said with disdain. In the arena ahead, Wang Xian saw Iya attacking him instantly. He moved and waved the long sword in his hand. Wang. At the same time, he teleported to the back. He teleported to 5 locations consecutively and arrived at the furthest back. TSK, do you think you can dodge by teleporting? Iya looked at Wang Xian with disdain when she saw him teleporting. Her swordsmanship could track him as long as he was within the coverage of her space domain. Wang. However, after teleporting 5 times, Wang Xian didn't continue to dodge. Instead, he waved his arm. At the 5 places that Iya had teleported to, sharp swords suddenly congealed and flew towards Iya's space swords. Bam, bam, bam. Intense collisions sounded. Iya's attacks were all blocked. Wang Xian waved his arm continuously, and sword graves formed around him. He stared at Iya, waved the sword in his hand, and stepped forward in the air. With every step he took, a sword grave was left around him. The sword graves were buried in the void. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't be able to sense them. Huh. He actually blocked my attack. Iya was slightly taken aback when she saw her attack being blocked. She stared at Wang Xian and said, "Seems like you have some strength. Looks like I'll have to get serious. That's all." As she spoke, she swung the sharp sword in her hand behind her. The space behind her began to tremble. The space seemed to shatter and formed many sharp swords. Soon, tens of thousands of sharp swords formed behind her. With a flash, she appeared 1,000 meters away from Wang Xian in an instant. At the same time, the densely packed space swords behind him teleported over and attacked Wang Xian from all directions. The moment Iya teleported, Wang Xian had already sensed her location. However, Wang Xian didn't move. At the instant when the tens of thousands of sharp swords attacked him, he shook the sword in his hand. Swoosh! At the position behind him, the scabbard, blade, and body of the sword began to form gradually. A sharp sword that was tens of thousands of meters long was formed. Break! Wang Xian slashed with the long sword in his hand. The 10,000-meter-long giant sword slashed towards Iya. Chapter 39-32. Rumble, rumble. The 10,000-meter-long space sword slashed towards Iya with a terrifying aura. Iya could feel the aura of the huge sword. Her calm expression finally changed. She could feel the threat of death from the 10,000-meter-long sword. She froze and stopped in her tracks. The sharp swords met the 10,000-meter-long sword head-on. At the same time, her figure flashed and she teleported to the back. The 10,000-meter-long swords lost control, and their power was greatly reduced. The 10,000-meter-long sword slashed down and destroyed the power of the space swords. The 10,000-meter-long sword broke through Iya's attack and continued to attack her at a terrifying speed. Iya's expression turned cold. She waved her arm and sword shadows bombarded the sword. The 10,000-meter-long sword began to crumble gradually. "That's it. Kill me in one move?" Wang Xian looked at Iya and asked emotionlessly. He had a mocking look on his face. This girl wasn't strong, but she was rather arrogant. "Kill me in one move? You." When Iya heard Wang Xian's words and saw his sarcastic expression, she was embarrassed. What she said just now was a slap to her face. What? Goddess Iya is being suppressed? How is that possible? It can't be. That Wang Xian is merely a rank 9 eternal swordsman, and yet he forced Iya to retreat? SSS, what's going on? What sword technique is that young man using? It looks powerful. At the same time, all the students of the Mingyi Sacred College who were watching the battle were shocked. Everyone thought it would be an easy battle for Goddess Iya. To their surprise, not only did she fail to suppress her opponent, but she was also forced to retreat. This was unbelievable. Oh? The mentors of the Mingyi Sacred College were shocked when they saw Wang Xian's sword technique. It was extremely difficult to fight someone of the same level, especially against someone of the same level like Iya. This sword technique? The space saint, Wu Qitian, stared and adjusted his eyebrows. "You have completely infuriated me. I'm going to show you my sword technique, Void Obliteration Sword." Iya stared coldly at Wang Xian with a stern look. With a wave of his hand, the sharp sword in his hand swung forward, and a wave of spatial energy fluctuated. His figure disappeared in an instant. When Wang Xian saw him attacking again, he had a serious look on his face. He stabbed in one direction, and his figure disappeared in an instant. Buzz. Iya instant shifted to a spot. The moment she appeared, she sensed an attack heading towards her. This caused her expression to freeze. "You can actually sense where I teleport?" She was surprised and used the sword in her hand to block the attack. Bam! After blocking the attack, he locked his gaze on Wang Xian. "Void, spare me." She gave a light shout, and the surroundings shook. Numerous sharp swords revolved around her, forming a terrifying sword storm. Buzz! She gripped the sharp sword in her hand tightly, and the number of spatial swords around her increased. Soon, it formed a terrifying spatial sword storm tens of thousands of meters in size. The surrounding void let out strange sounds as the storm soared tore it apart. As the storm grew stronger, Iya circled in the middle. She stared at Wang Xian and flew towards him. Her speed was extremely fast. Not bad swordsmanship. While Iya was accumulating strength, Wang Xian waved the sharp sword in his hand continuously. A large number of sword catacombs gathered around him. The sword catacombs were like seeds that grew rapidly, forming sharp swords that pierced the clouds. Each sword catacomb was a horrifying sharp sword that rose. Gradually, more than 10 sharp swords that pierced the clouds appeared in front of Wang Xian, shielding him. Break. When Iya saw the dozen terrifying swords piercing through the clouds, her face was filled with a grave expression. She had not expected a rank 9 eternal swordsman student to be able to unleash such a powerful attack. The attack formed by the accumulation of more than 10 terrifying giant swords was already a threat to her. However, his Void Sword Storm wasn't afraid of his opponent either. She brought along the horrifying power of the sword storm and attacked the sharp swords that pierced the clouds. Boom, boom, boom. Bam, bam, bam. Deafening collisions sounded. The horrifying sword storm continued to mince the giant swords. These giant swords crumbled rapidly and turned into the power of space. Hee. Wang Xian smiled when he saw the speed at which the swords crumbled. He waved the sharp swords in his hand rapidly and formed sword catacombs. The sword catacombs formed rapidly in front of him. This time, there were a total of 18 sword catacombs formed. When the 18 sword catacombs were formed, the dozen of giant swords in front of him had already been destroyed. The sword storm formed by Iya was still present. She floated in the middle and stared at Wang Xian from above. You have exceeded my expectations, but this is the end. Iya revealed a cold look in her eyes as she controlled the sword storm and continued to attack Wang Xian. Yes, it's time to end this. Wang Xian waved his arm, and the sword catacombs in front of him disappeared rapidly. Green-peaked sword formation. Rise. Wang Xian bellowed. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In an instant, the 18 sword catacombs turned into several horrifying sword edges. Every sword edge exuded a horrifying aura. Most importantly, these 18 sword edges seemed to have formed some kind of powerful sword formation. Clang, clang, clang. The 18 sword edges surrounded Iya in the middle, and it was accompanied by the cold sound of sharp swords. In the sky above the 18 sword edges, a horrifying sharp sword was formed. The sharp sword headed straight for Iya. What's this? How is this possible? The sudden sword edge and the sudden sharp sword in the sky caused Iya to reveal a look of horror. She could feel the power of the sharp sword, and her body trembled violently. Sword storm, rise. She raised the sharp sword in her hand, and the storm rotated to meet the sharp sword above. Boom! Everyone heard a violent roar. All the students' faces were filled with shock. The sharp sword fell from the sky, and the storm surged up to the sky. However, the surrounding 18 sword edges gradually glowed, and waves of energy were injected into them. The entire storm of swords was slowly suppressed. Bam, bam, bam. The sound of the sharp sword breaking reverberated continuously, and the sharp sword that fell from the sky did not weaken at all. Instead, it grew stronger. No, Iya, who was inside, was shocked when she saw this scene. Her face was filled with indignation and fear. Against this move, she could not do anything, and might even be killed. Chapter 39-33. Wang. All right, Iya is defeated. Iya's indignant roar reverberated in everyone's ears. An expert from the Ming-Yi Sacred Academy looked at this scene with a gleam in his eyes. He then spoke directly. With a wave of his arm, the 18 blades dissipated instantly. Oh my god, Iya is defeated. She's really defeated? Defeated. Even our mentor Hong said that she's defeated. Iya is completely defeated. What kind of swordsmanship is that? To form 18 terrifying blades. That's way too strong. If not for Mentor Hong's organization, I reckon that terrifying attack could have killed Iya. Too strong. An eternal swordsman at the rank 9 eternal swordsman defeated a pinnacle eternal swordsman. What kind of swordsmanship is that? Who exactly is that Wang Xian? The biggest dark horse of this cohort has appeared. The speed of the battle was similar to what we expected. But who would have thought that Iya would be the one defeated? Such a terrifying attack, such powerful strength. Is it something that an Eternal Realm student can withstand? Voices of astonishment rang continuously as all the students looked at the scene in disbelief. No one would have thought that this would be the result, even though Wang Xian had suppressed Iya at the beginning. Moreover, the battle ended so quickly and Iya was defeated so quickly. This shocked everyone even more. The biggest dark horse of this cohort had appeared. Moreover, he defeated Iya in a way that surpassed his cultivation level. Unimaginable. His swordsmanship is definitely horrifying. In the middle of the viewing platform, Space Saint Wu Qitian stared at Wang Xian with a tinge of astonishment. Indeed, in the face of such a sword technique, even he felt very amazed. The swordsmanship that he had cultivated had always been invincible since he started cultivating it. No one at the same level as him was his match. Iya had received his teachings. Because of his guidance, even when he was at the pinnacle of the eternal swordsman, he did not think that he was stronger than Iya. Yet, a rank 9 eternal swordsman student had defeated Iya. What did this mean? This meant that the swordsmanship that Wang Xian had mastered was of a much higher level than his. One should know that his own swordsmanship was obtained by chance. In Ming-Yi Sacred College, it was considered a top-notch swordsmanship. Wang Xian won. Not bad, not bad. His swordsmanship is strong. Teacher Hong, who was in the sky, continued to announce. He looked at Wang Xian with a tinge of surprise. Wang Xian smiled and cupped his fists. With a swift move, he teleported to the central observation platform. Congratulations, Wang Xian. I didn't expect you to be so awesome. When Ye Yue saw Wang Xian flying over, she looked at him in awe and congratulated him. Thank you. Wang Xian smiled and nodded. He wasn't surprised at all. Iya's abilities were slightly weaker than he had expected. He hadn't been pushed to his limits yet. At the side, Su Xinruan looked at Wang Xian with mixed emotions. He had not expected Wang Xian to win. Brother Tian, I lost. At the side, Iya flew from the stage to Wu Qitian's side and spoke with a face full of indignation. His swordsmanship is very strong. It's unheard of. As Wu Qitian spoke, his eyes fell on Wang Xian. Wang Xian, right? Come here for a moment. He opened his mouth and suddenly said. Wang Xian's voice also reached his ears. Don't tell me Lord Saint has taken a liking to Wang Xian? That's possible. After all, he won by leapfrogging. If Lord Saint has taken a liking to him, he'll be soaring to the sky. I'm so envious. When the surrounding students heard Saint Wu Qitian's words, they fixed their gazes on Wang Xian and were filled with envy. The title of Holy Son was very important in Mingyi Sacred Academy. Even the mentors would have to address him respectfully as saint. Even in the entire Mingyi Sacred College, the status of the saint was comparable to the group of elders. One should know that the group of elders were at least level 8 or 9 universe venerables, or even at the pinnacle. If Lord Saint had taken a liking to him, he would be soaring to the sky. When Wang Xian heard Wu Qitian, he frowned slightly. Wang Xian, Lord Saint is calling for you. Hurry up and go over. This is Lord Saint we're talking about. Nye Yue quickly said to Wang Xian when she heard him. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before flying to Wu Qitian's side. He cupped his fists and greeted, Lord Saint, your swordsmanship isn't bad. You have strong combat experience and great potential. Are you interested in following me? With my guidance in the future, your strength will improve much faster than it is now. Wu Qitian looked at Wang Xian and spoke with flickering eyes. Brother Tian. Before Wang Xian could reply, Iya opened her mouth and looked at Wu Qitian with an aggrieved expression. Wu Qitian looked at her and gestured to her. SSS, Lord Saint has taken a liking to Wang Xian to let him follow by his side. He'll soar to the sky. If he follows Lord Saint, he'll have Lord Saint as his backing and guidance in the future. His future will be bright. How envious. He's the luckiest dark horse this year. When the disciples in the top 30 heard this, they couldn't help but sigh with envy. When Wu Qitian heard the envious voices around him, he revealed a faint smile. Recruiting an eternal level student was a great opportunity for any student. No one would reject it. I'm sorry, Saint. I'm used to cultivating alone. However, at this moment, Wang Xian's words entered his ears, and the smile on his face froze. Oh, why? You're still unwilling? I won't mistreat you if you follow me. The saint frowned slightly and stared at him. I'm sorry. Wang Xian shook his head. Forget it if you don't agree. Your swordsmanship isn't bad. I wonder if I can discuss it with you. Of course, I won't mistreat you. I'll provide all the resources you need to cultivate to the level of Sword Emperor. Moreover, I'll give you a portion of the swordsmanship that I'm cultivating for you to study. Seeing Wang Xian rejecting him again, Wu Qitian remained silent for a few seconds before continuing. You're forbidden from imparting your family's swordsmanship to others. Is there anything else, Saint? When Wang Xian heard this, his eyes flickered as he stared at him calmly. Haha, it's nothing. When Wu Qitian heard Wang Xian rejecting him again, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. However, he laughed and shook his head. I feel that you have unlimited potential in the future. Let's go and have a drink or two. Is that all right with you? Wu Qitian took 2 steps forward and patted him on the shoulder. At the same time, a surge of spatial force surged into Wang Xian's body. This spatial force began to dominate Wang Xian's body. Chapter 39-34. Her? To think that Lord Saint would invite Wang Xian for a drink. How much does Lord Saint value him? I'm so envious. However, Wang Xian rejected all of the saint's conditions. This is a little. He rejected the saint twice, but the saint didn't hold it against him. He even values him so much. TSK. I'm so envious. When the surrounding students saw Wu Qitian patting Wang Xian's shoulder, they were filled with envy. This was the space saint. He rejected the saint twice and was still valued so highly. What a blessing. However, at this moment, Wang Xian sensed a wave of space force entering his body. This force was trying to dominate and control his body. In fact, he couldn't even speak under the influence of this space force. Go! Wu Qitian shouted again with a smile on his face. At this moment, Wang Xian sensed a wave of space force enveloping him and trying to take him away. Wang Xian sensed everything that Wu Qitian was doing to him. He lifted his head slowly and stared at Wu Qitian with a cold look in his eyes. Wu Qitian, what are you trying to do to me? Are you trying to confine my body with space force? Wang Xian said coldly to him. Her? Wang Xian's sudden words stunned Wu Qitian, who was beside him. At the same time, the surrounding students were also paying attention to them. When they heard Wang Xian's words, they were taken aback and astonished. What's going on? What did he mean? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Wu Qitian's eyes flashed with surprise, following which, his face turned cold as he stared at Wang Xian. An intimidating aura gradually surged from his body. Wu Qitian, you should know what I mean. What are you trying to do by invading my body with space force? Wang Xian stared at Wu Qitian and said plainly, Brat, what nonsense are you talking about? I saw that your talent was not bad, so I wanted to give you a few pointers, but you actually said that I used the power of space to invade your body. Ha ha ha, how laughable. With your strength, if I really used the power of space to invade your body, would you still be able to speak? You can still move? Wu Qitian laughed out loud and stared coldly at Wang Xian. Brat, do you know the consequences of maligning me? What's going on? Then why did Wang Xian suddenly wish for Lord Saint? No way, what's going on? Wang Xian said that the saint had invaded him with the power of space. Was this not a joke? What kind of strength does Lord Saint have? If we really invade him, can he still move? Yeah. Isn't Wang Xian getting a little carried away? This is the biggest joke in the world. How strong is the space saint and how strong is he? He has wrongly accused Lord Saint. This kid is simply courting death. The surrounding students were all dumbfounded. What was going on? Wrongly accusing the space saint? Are you sure you're not courting death? Saint, what's going on? Seated at the back, The group of mentors also looked over. Mentor He also looked at Wang Xian with astonishment as he asked Wu Qitian. Mentor He, Wu Qitian invaded my body with the power of space in an attempt to control me. Mentors, you can check my body to see if there's any other energy invading. Wang Xian looked at Mentor He and the rest of the mentors. As he spoke, his eyes flickered. Mentor He's expression changed slightly when he heard Wang Xian's words. He looked at Wu Qitian. How dare you? If the saint invaded your body with energy, would you still be able to move? Brat, don't tell me you think you can accuse the saint just because you got first place? One of the mentors looked at Wang Xian and berated him in a deep voice with a cold expression. Mentor, you will know if I'm lying or not. Why would I accuse him for no reason? Wang Xian looked at that mentor calmly and replied, You have ulterior motives. I think you're courting death to slander me in public. At the side, Wu Qitian's eyes turned cold as a terrifying aura engulfed Wang Xian. Old He, this is your student. How dare he go against his superiors? Slandering the saint. Let the saint deal with this brat. I think we should just kill him. Among the mentors, 2 of them said coldly. One of them even wanted to kill Wang Xian. It was as though killing a student was as easy as stepping on an ant. In fact, an eternal swordsman was just like an ant to them. They could crush him to death easily. They could even turn him into ashes with a wave of their hands. An eternal swordsman had offended the saint. No matter who was in the right or wrong, this brat would have to pay the price. Moreover, the weak were in the wrong. This brat really dared to slander the saint. He's courting death. His bright future has been ruined by his own stupidity. He doesn't know what's good for him. He's courting death. When the surrounding students saw this scene, their eyes were filled with coldness and disdain. As for what Wang Xian had said and what he wanted them to verify, they had completely ignored it. Want to kill me? Wang Xian listened to the voices around him. When he heard the words of that mentor, a cold look flashed in his eyes. I came to Ming-Yi Sacred College to study. I don't want to get involved in anything, nor do I want to offend anyone. However, this doesn't mean that anyone can offend me. Do you know? Wang Xian said calmly as he looked at the mentor who wanted to kill him. Wang. His body shook slightly as he merged with the void divine dragon. Then, he extended his hand towards that mentor. Wang. When he extended his hand, the middle-aged mentor's body dissipated instantly. There was not the slightest sound, nor was there any energy bombardment. It was as though there was no sound. All that was left of that middle-aged mentor was his head. However, there was no movement from Wang Xian's casual gesture. However, that middle-aged mentor could feel a great horror befalling him. However, he felt an intense pain in his mind. Shock was written all over his face as he looked at his own body. However, at this moment, his body had disappeared. Arg! A horrifying shriek came from his mouth as he stared at Wang Xian in horror. You're courting death. Wang Xian uttered these words slowly and waved his hand gently. In the next second, the middle-aged mentor's head disappeared completely. It was as though he had never existed in this world. Just like that, he disappeared without a trace. Chapter 39-35 SSS. The moment the middle-aged mentor's body disappeared, when his final scream reverberated through the sky, everyone in the surroundings was dumbfounded. They stared blankly at the student in front of them. This was a student who was like an ant to them. They were in a trance. But all of this was real. The mentors could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their faces were filled with shock. Old Xian. One of the mentors opened his mouth and his expression kept changing. He looked at Wang Xian with fear in his eyes. How is this possible? The strength of this student. Be careful. What are you trying to do? I'm warning you. This is our Ming-Yi Sacred College. What are you up to by sneaking into our college? At this time, the mentors also reacted. They immediately retreated to the surroundings and surrounded Wang Xian with cold expressions. At the side, the Space Saint was also staring at Wang Xian. His expression changed drastically. Just now, none of them sensed any energy surging out from Wang Xian, but he made a mentor vanish into thin air with ease. This scene was too horrifying. Wu Qitian's expression changed drastically. Without any hesitation, he immediately tried to teleport away. Wang, however, when he wanted to teleport, he found that he couldn't move at all. He couldn't teleport at all. What's going on? You. What did you do to me? Wu Qitian stared at Wang Xian with horror written all over his face. He growled at Wang Xian in a low voice with an unusually bitter expression. What did I do to you? Whatever you wanted to do to me just now, I'm doing to you now. Wang Xian stared at Wu Qitian with indifference in his eyes. Wu Qitian wanted to control him so that he could get the heavenly yuan swordplay from him. But it was a pity that he met Wang Xian. Wu Qitian looked at Wang Xian and shuddered. He growled in a low voice. This is the Ming-Yi Sacred College. Do you know the consequences of offending the Ming-Yi Sacred College? Do you know the consequences of offending me? When Wang Xian heard him, he smirked and asked back, What's going on? What's happening over there? Gulp, I don't know. What happened there? How did Wang Xian get into a conflict with the Space Saint and our mentors? What's going on? Where did that scream come from? And what's going on with that Wang Xian? This Wang Xian, what exactly is his strength? At the same time, all the students in the surroundings looked over in shock. A group of students who were closer to them looked over in horror. As for those students who were further away, they stood up one by one, their faces filled with astonishment. They still did not understand what had happened here. However, the mentors' terrifying auras soared into the sky, causing them to feel a trace of fear. Some ants among you deserve to die too. Wang Xian looked around and waved his arm. Buzz! A wave of energy swept out, and the students who had been shouting at him earlier, who were filled with malice towards him, disappeared in an instant. They had already dissipated from this universe. That included Iya. Stop, Wang Xian, stop. The instant disappearance of more than 10 students caused the expressions of the instructors to change again. When they saw this scene, their eyebrows twitched violently. They didn't even sense anything when those students disappeared in an instant. It was as though they had vanished into thin air. This made all the mentors feel a little terrified. They didn't even sense Wang Xian controlling the energy. Arg! So scary. When the students in the surroundings saw the dozen or so people suddenly disappear in a strange manner, their faces instantly revealed a horrified expression. Some of the more timid ones exclaimed and immediately fled. Is that Wang Xian an expert? SSS, what's going on? How dare that Wang Xian kill the students of our Ming-Yi Sacred College? This time, all the students around the arena saw this scene, and their faces were full of shock as they growled in a low voice. They looked at Wang Xian in disbelief. This dark horse that had just been born seemed a little different. The dozen or so students who had been eliminated were all in the top 30 of Ming-Yi Sacred Academy. Wang Xian, why did you enter our Ming-Yi Sacred College? Does our Ming-Yi Sacred College have a feud with you? The one who shouted for Wang Xian to stop was Mentor He. At this moment, he looked at Wang Xian with a changing expression and asked in a low voice again. Mentor He, I'm here purely to seek knowledge. However, there are people who don't know what's good for them and want to control me with the power of space. I'm just asking for fairness. However, since you can't give it to me, I'll have to do it myself. Wang Xian looked at Mentor He and replied calmly. He really didn't want to be so high profile. After entering this universe of swords and magic, Wang Xian was prepared to cultivate to the level of the universe dominator. However, there were people who wanted to provoke him. Someone wanted to take advantage of him. Most importantly, Wang Xian had already given the Ming-Yi Sacred College a chance to settle this themselves. However, they didn't trust him and wanted to eliminate him. In that case, they shouldn't blame him. Boom. You killed our students in our Ming-Yi Sacred College. You don't know what's good for you. No matter what reason you have, don't think of leaving this place today. Just as Wang Xian finished his sentence, the entire sky changed. A huge white cloud suddenly shrouded the entire sky. Following this, a series of powerful auras descended upon the place. The moment Wang Xian eliminated a mentor, the mentors knew that Wang Xian was extremely mysterious and powerful. Therefore, they immediately sought help from the experts in the Sacred College. As a sacred college that ruled over thousands of magic nations, Anyone who dared to kill and create trouble in their territory would have to pay the price in blood. This was where the prestige of the sacred college lied. It wouldn't allow anyone to trample on it. The guardians are here. They are the guardians of our Ming-Yi Sacred College. The guardians are here. They are the experts who protect our Ming-Yi Sacred College. No matter what reason Wang Xian has, he must pay the price for killing people in our Ming-Yi Sacred College. Phew, since the guardians are here, Wang Xian shouldn't be too presumptuous. When the mentors and students in the surroundings saw the arrival of the protector of the Sacred Institute, they heaved a sigh of relief. Each of the guardians in the college had the strength of a universe supremacy. With such strength, they could easily destroy a magic nation. Chapter 39-36. Wong Wong Wong. Swish swish swish. In the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute, a white cloud shrouded the entire sky above the arena. Accompanied by a cold and dignified voice, one figure after another slowly emerged from the white clouds. They looked down coldly and locked on to Wang Xian. There were more than 100 figures, and each of them contained a powerful aura. The protectors of the Sacred Institute weren't the only experts. There were more than 100 of them, and each of them was at least a rank 5 universe venerable. This was just the elementary school. The advanced school, which was also the old lair of the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute, had even more terrifying protectors. In fact, the school had always been overseen by a dean. The dean of the Sacred Institute was a truly powerful existence. He was the pillar of the entire Sacred Institute. However, under normal circumstances, the strength of the protectors around the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute was already at the top of the pyramid. In the surrounding magic nations, the strongest experts of many nations were only at the level of Void Sword Emperor and Void God Emperor. There weren't many magic nations that had universe venerables overseeing them. One could imagine what the might and strength of the protectors represented. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow as he looked at the hundreds of figures in the sky. More than 100 universe venerable level powerhouses locked their auras on him, their eyes filled with coldness. Protectors, save me. I'm being restrained by him. Wu Qitian's eyes lit up when he saw the group of protectors, and he immediately cried for help. To be able to restrain Wu Qitian Saint, it seems like your strength has reached the level of a universe venerable. Release Wu Qitian Saint before we discuss other matters. The old man in the middle of the group of protectors stared at Wang Xian as he spoke coldly. Hee, I'll release him just because you say so? Wang Xian chuckled and waved his hand at Wu Qitian. Wang. A wave of energy landed on Wu Qitian's limbs, and the terrifying destructive force instantly removed his limbs. Arg! The destructive force caused Wu Qitian to feel intense pain as he screamed in agony. Courting death. When one of the protectors saw this scene, his expression changed slightly. His figure moved and disappeared in an instant. A universe venerable level 6 spatial swordsman. His figure disappeared, and in the next second, he appeared beside Wu Qitian. The moment he appeared, the power of space immediately enveloped Wu Qitian, trying to save him. You're the one courting death. Wang Xian was disdainful when he saw the guardian daring to teleport over. He waved the long sword in his hand and attacked the protector directly. As the sharp sword slashed down, the protector's body immediately stiffened. Following that, a horrifying scene unfolded before Wu Qitian's eyes. The body of the protector who had teleported to his side slowly split open. His eyes widened as his vitality disappeared at a terrifying speed. Fear was written all over Wu Qitian's face when he saw that. What? He let out a wild roar. In the surroundings, there were over 100 protectors, instructors, and all of the students. When they saw Wang Xian killing a guardian instantly, their faces were filled with horror. A protector was instantly killed. This was a protector. They were the core experts of the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute. However, an existence of this level was instantly killed by the mysterious Wang Xian in a single move. What was Wang Xian's strength? How is this possible? That's our protector, an expert of the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute. How could he be killed? SSS, who is that Wang Xian? What's his strength? Is he the enemy of the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute? The Space Saint Sun's limbs were severed by him, and one of his protectors was also killed by him. The surrounding students and instructors were in an uproar. The pupils of the 100 protectors constricted slightly, killing a eternal swordsman rank 6 protector instantly. In the middle of the group of protectors, the old man stared at Wang Xian with a solemn expression. The rest of the protectors immediately took out their weapons. The magicians among them had already begun to gather their magic, ready to attack at any time. Wu Qitian wants to harm me. Mingyi Sacred Institute, give me an explanation. Wang Xian looked at the group of protectors and said plainly. He needed a satisfactory answer for this matter. Everything started because of Wu Qitian. In order to resolve this matter, he needed the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute to make a statement. He needed the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute's attitude. We don't know what feud you have with the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute, but you'd better let go of our saint. The old man in the middle of the group of protectors stared at Wang Xian with a complicated expression and replied coldly, I hate threats. Upon hearing the old man's words, Wang Xian waved his arm and the sharp sword in his hand slashed towards the old man. Wang. Cough, cough, cough. The moment the sharp sword slashed across, the protector of the Ming-Yi Sacred Institute instantly felt the energy around him stagnate. This was followed by a great horror. He felt a surge of energy that cut him into two. Moreover, this horrifying energy caused his vitality to vanish rapidly. He had already seen death and knew his ending. Horror, shock, and indignation. What kind of existence did the space saint offend? At his level of cultivation, he could be resurrected with a drop of blood. However, this required the blood in his body to be active. It required his consciousness to be injected into it. However, Wang Xian's attack had instantly wiped out all his vitality. Even if it was a drop of blood, there was no energy in it. Another casual wave of the sword. Another protector was killed, and this old protector was obviously the leader of the group of protectors. An existence of this level was easily killed by Wang Xian. At this moment, the hundreds of protectors around were completely dumbfounded. Yes, they were completely dumbfounded. This old man was an expert at the rank 8 universe venerable realm. He was one of the top experts in the elementary school. However, he was still killed by a sword without a sound. This scene was too horrifying to them. A rank 9 universe venerable expert would definitely not be able to do it. Even a pinnacle universe venerable expert might not be able to do it so easily. The hundreds of protectors trembled and their eyes were filled with fear. They knew that if the young man below wanted to kill all of them, he could easily kill all of them in an instant. The strength he displayed was too strong. Gulp. At this moment, Wu Qitian, who was imprisoned at the side with his limbs missing, was sweating profusely. He swallowed his saliva. His face was pale and his eyes were bloodshot. What kind of expert did he offend? Chapter 39-37. Give me an explanation in 3 seconds. Wang Xian exterminated the leader of the protectors easily. He turned to the rest of the protectors and spoke plainly. Senior, let's talk nicely. One of the protectors looked at Wang Xian and felt his scalp tingle. At this moment, they were completely behaving themselves. The mysterious young man in front of them was terrifyingly strong. The probability of him reaching the level of a universe lord was 70%. After all, they were in the Ming-Yi Sacred College. Only a universe lord would dare to kill someone here without any fear. There was also the second possibility. This mysterious young man's background wasn't simple. Wang Xian's expression didn't change when he heard the protector. He just looked at them quietly. The group of protectors exchanged glances when they saw this situation. All of them looked embarrassed. 3 seconds. If they couldn't give this mysterious young man an answer in 3 seconds, they would probably be attacked. Huff, senior. You can settle this however you want. We'll listen to you. One of the protectors said to Wang Xian helplessly. Wang Xian's strength didn't allow them to resist. Moreover, they didn't have any universe lord experts around. Hence, they didn't dare to say anything drastic. In that case, I'll settle it myself. Wang Xian nodded his head plainly. He looked at Space Saint, Wu Qitian, coldly. If you dare to kill me, the Ming-Yi Sacred College won't let you off. My father won't let you off either. Wu Qitian stared at Wang Xian, his expression changing constantly as he bellowed. Killing you is like slaughtering a dog. Wang Xian looked at him, waved his arm, and injected a stream of energy into his body. Subsequently, Wu Qitian's divine tune faded gradually. Just you wait. Just you wait. Wu Qitian could feel his body disappearing slowly. He had a hideous look on his face. Hee. Wang Xian looked at him with a smile. Don't worry. I'll be looking for you soon. Very soon. Wu Qitian's expression changed slightly when he heard this. But soon, his body dissipated completely. The Space Saint Sun is dead. He killed him. Hiss. He killed the Space Saint Sun in front of all the protectors. His strength is terrifying. He's not a simple student at all. He can even kill a Lord Protector, let alone our Lord Space Saint. All the mentors and students in the surroundings were shocked when they saw this scene. He had directly killed the saint. Even a group of protectors like them had no way to deal with it. Wu Qitian has a resurrection treasure. He's not completely dead yet. Take me to the divine Tao rite of the First Ming Sacred Institute. Wang Xian looked at the group of guardians and spoke plainly. To the sacred dojo? Upon hearing Wang Xian's words, the guardians narrowed their eyes again. He didn't leave immediately after killing the Space Saint. Instead, he sensed that the Space Saint had a resurrection treasure and was now heading to the Sacred Tao Arena. The Sacred Tao Plaza was the origin of the Ming-Yi Sacred Academy. That place contained all of the foundation of the First Ming Sacred Academy, as well as the most precious treasure trove. Now, he was actually going there to continue killing the Space Saint. What kind of strength and foundation did he have? He actually dared to be so arrogant, wanting to go to a sacred academy and kill a saint child? If Qin Wentian were to really be killed, the Sacred Academy would definitely lose a lot of face. They couldn't afford to be shamed. Senior, we have already informed the experts in our institute about this matter. The experts in our institute will talk to you. A guardian said to Wang Xian with a sullen face. Wang Xian's strength wasn't something they could contend with. Hence, they didn't dare to threaten him. I'll go there myself. Wang Xian looked in a direction. With a swift move, he flew over immediately. There was a teleportation array in the Junior Academy of the Sacred Academy that could bring him directly to the Advanced Academy. After absorbing the memories of the Space Saint, Wang Xian knew how to get there. In fact, Wang Xian had absorbed the memories of those experts in the mirror image realm. Hence, he had a good understanding of the Ming-Yi Sacred Academy. Let's go. When the group of guardians saw Wang Xian flying towards the center of the academy, their faces darkened and they followed closely behind. At the same time, the news quickly spread to the experts in the Sacred Institute. Ming-Yi Sacred Academy was a sacred academy. Even if it wasn't strong, it still had many universe supremacies. His reaction to this kind of crisis was still very fast. At the same time, the Advanced Academy was also informed of the situation. My gosh, he's going straight to Ming-Yi Sacred Institute. Perhaps the Space Saint really has some thoughts about this person, and that's why he was angered. Just who is he? How dare he be so unscrupulous? All the mentors and students in the surroundings were shocked to see Wang Xian heading to the Sage Tao ground of Ming-Yi Sacred College. Some students and teachers. He whispered. Instructor, he looked at the disappearing figure, and his expression changed slightly. He shook his head helplessly. Buzz. Wang Xian arrived at the location of the teleportation formation of Ming-Yi Sacred College and stepped into it. This teleportation array could directly reach the core of the Advanced Academy. This was a teleportation array used by the experts of the Ming-Yi Sacred Academy. Boom, boom, boom. The moment Wang Xian appeared, waves of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The experts of the Ming-Yi Sacred College stared coldly at Wang Xian with their staffs in their hands. Above him, numerous magical arrays had surrounded the area. The terrifying magical arrays were brewing their power. Wang Xian swept his gaze across them and revealed a calm expression. I'm here to kill Wu Qitian. I'll leave immediately after that. If the Ming-Yi Sacred College wants to stop me, you can try. He said to the experts around him. Tens of thousands of experts were all at the universe supremacy level. Wang Xian could sense that the few old men leading them had reached the pinnacle of the venerable realm. This force was already very strong for the Ming-Yi Sacred College. Their reaction time was also very fast. The moment they received the news, a team of guards from the Mingyi Sacred College had already organized and set up everything. However, to Wang Xian, this force was way too weak. It was so weak that they could be annihilated with a wave of his hand. They did not provoke Wang Xian, and Wang Xian had no intention of annihilating the entire Mingyi Sacred College. After annihilating Wu Qitian, he would leave. Moreover, from Wu Qitian's memory, he knew that Wu Qitian was prepared to force him to reveal the swordsmanship he cultivated. As for the outcome, it was up to Wang Xian to decide whether to kill him or let him go. Therefore, he would not let Wu Qitian go. Chapter 39-38. Aren't you being a little too arrogant? Wang Xian's declaration to take Wu Qitian's life made the surrounding experts from Mingyi Sacred College sullen. The leader, a pinnacle universe venerable, stared at Wang Xian and said coldly, "I'll give you 3 seconds to consider." Wang Xian looked at the magician and continued speaking calmly. I really want to see who exactly is so arrogant as to dare to cause trouble and kill people in our first Ming Holy Institute. I really want to see who it is that dares to come to our first Ming Holy Institute and kill the son of Wu Jihong. As soon as Wang Xian finished his sentence, before the sorcerer could reply, an extremely cold voice was heard from the sky above. Wang, following which, a figure appeared and stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent. It was a middle-aged man with surging spatial power. Wang Xian looked at him with glistening eyes. The middle-aged man stared at Wang Xian with intense murderous intent. Wu Jihong, the strongest spatial swordsman in Mingyi Sacred College and a pinnacle universe venerable. Because he was a spatial cultivator, he was invincible among his peers in terms of combat power and escaping ability. Even a first-order or second-order sovereign realm expert would find it difficult to kill him. Then I'll kill you first. Wang Xian's face turned cold when he saw Wu Qitian's father. With a wave of his arm, a 9-colored sword was formed and locked on to Wu Jihong. After the 9-colored sword was formed, it arrived in front of Wu Jihong in an instant. From the moment Wang Xian made his move to the moment the sword arrived in front of him, only a split second had passed. Wu Jihong didn't even have time to react. The surrounding experts from Mingyi Sacred College didn't even have time to react. The sword pierced through Wu Jihong's body in an instant. The terrifying destructive power made him widen his eyes in horror. What? When the sword pierced through Wu Jihong, the surrounding experts from Mingyi Sacred College finally reacted. When they looked over, their eyes narrowed and their faces were filled with horror. Wu Jihong didn't even have time to react and was killed? How was this possible? One had to know that Wu Jihong was an invincible existence below the sovereign realm in the First Ming Holy Academy. A space attribute pinnacle realm warrior was instantly killed. He didn't even have time to react. In that case, what realm was this mysterious young man at? Kaka. However, at this moment, Wu Jihong's body suddenly shattered like glass. His figure appeared at the side. At this moment, his face was extremely pale, and his face was filled with terror. He stared at Wang Xian in horror as cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Wang Xian continued to stare at him quietly with an indifferent look on his face. Buzz. At that moment, the 9-colored sword still hadn't disappeared and was still floating in the air. When Wu Jihong's body reappeared, the sharp sword continued to attack. Damn it! How is this possible? Just what level of expert are you? Wu Jihong shouted in horror when he saw the sharp sword coming at him again. Buzz. This time, he reacted and instantly disappeared. However, the sharp sword continued to chase after him. Swoosh. 2 seconds later, the sharp sword flew over with a corpse. The corpse was Wu Jihong. Wang Xian's sharp sword carried the power of wind and thunder locking. This came from the unbeginning saint wings. When Wang Xian's unbeginning saint wings completely integrated, there was a scene of inheritance. In the scene, an incomparably powerful bird species expert killed a space attribute expert of the Void Universe's royal family. The powerful wind and thunder locking could track down and kill experts of the space attribute. Now, Wang Xian also had this ability. He could also easily kill experts of the space attribute. This, However, when the surrounding experts from the Ming-Yi Sacred Academy saw this scene, their faces were filled with shock. Wu Jihong, the strongest space attribute cultivator in the First Ming Holy Academy, a pinnacle existence among the universe warriors. His strength wasn't the strongest in the First Ming Holy Academy, nor had he reached the sovereign realm. However, because of his space attribute, even the sovereign realm of the First Ming Holy Academy couldn't kill him. But now, Wu Jihong was killed so easily. In fact, the other party had only used a single move, a sharp sword condensed from energy, to kill him. How terrifying was his strength! The crowd took a deep breath as they looked at Wang Xian with awe and respect. Senior, Wu Qitian has offended you. Our First Ming Holy Academy will give you an explanation. A Pinnacle Universe Venerable Realm expert, who was the leader, quickly explained to Wang Xian. At the same time, they also urgently passed some information about Wang Xian to the dean. Now, they were 100% sure that Wang Xian was at the level of a Universe Lord. And he wasn't an ordinary Universe Lord. Such strength was enough to clash with the First Ming Holy Academy. In fact, they might not even be a match for him. Facing an expert of this level was no longer something they could decide. The dean and the rest had to deal with it personally. Buzz buzz. The moment the voice of the leading pinnacle supremacy landed, Ming-Yi Sacred Academy sensed Wu Jihong's death and received the news. 3 Universe Lord Realm experts flew over. They appeared in the sky and looked at Wang Xian from afar, frowning as they tried to sense the situation. The dean and the rest are here. Greetings, dean. The surrounding experts sensed something and immediately bowed to the 3 old men respectfully. My friend, can't we settle this peacefully? A dean from the First Ming Holy Academy looked at Wang Xian and asked with a frown. Wu Hongtian's death and Wang Xian's aura had made the 3 deans immediately determine that Wang Xian wasn't simple. Therefore, they didn't dare to offend him. You guys can try to stop him. However, you will have to pay with your life. Wang Xian looked at them and spoke calmly. His words made the faces of the 3 deans darken. Wang Xian was too domineering. However, Wang Xian's strength made them wary. To be able to kill Wu Jihong in a second, his strength was definitely not weaker than theirs. For such an enemy, they either had to kill him or not offend him. Otherwise, the outcome of the First Ming Holy Academy would be miserable. Phew, alright. Wu Qitian had ill intentions towards this friend. An expert can't be humiliated. You can do whatever you want with him. The 3 deans looked at each other with sullen faces and said helplessly,